Chapter 1945. The child looked at his parents and sensibly slipped down from the high stool, standing to the side with his hands behind his back. Sit down and eat. Baigu got up and came to the child's side as he spoke. He picked up the child and put him back on the stool. He sat down again. The child is well-mannered, which shows the character of the elder. Teaching by word and example first. However, teaching by oneself may not be enough. Learn to find a teacher. Find a place to settle down. Establish oneself as old Bai. Is this how you help me persuade people? The little robot behind Baigu suddenly said. Just kidding, just kidding. That Ma Jian Xiao Yi is the Dongzhu Li Yi of the Li family Zhuangzi by the Ba River in Chang'an. He has taken a fancy to you. Baigu smiled and rephrased it. Old Bai, do you believe that my hand trembled and the drawing was wrong? The little robot said again. The child did not eat, and stared at the little robot with wide eyes. Aha! Xiaoyi has taken a fancy to your ability to work. You see, your family has no relatives and no one to rely on. Who is the most powerful in the entire Tang dynasty? It must be His Majesty, right? Secondly, I am the head of the secretariat, but I was scared. Don't you think this person is powerful? Baigu hurriedly reorganized his words. He had a favor to ask of others. There was no other way. Bai Zaifu, is Li Dongzhu in there? Ma Jian pointed to the little robot and asked, wondering how Li Yi had squeezed in. He is somewhere else. Maybe he is surrounded by beautiful women. He is a bit. Bai Zaifu is really good at predicting things. Amazing. A woman's clear voice came from the little robot. It was Princess Yongmu. Let's get down to business. That was Princess Yongmu. She is with Xiao Yi. You. Baigu was depressed. Bai Zaifu, I understand. I want to apply for the Li family Zhuangzi's craftsman position. If I pass, I'll bring my family in. Ma Jian understood. Zaifu of the Tang dynasty came to talk to him about the exam. No, let's go straight in. A person who was hired by the local government to be in charge of post-disaster reconstruction. A person who was ostracized by master and his fellow disciples. I guarantee that he has his own abilities. Li Yi's movements came from the small robot again. There was no need for assessment. This was because the assessment was not based on one's skill level. One had to pass a lie detector test. The craftsmen of the Tang dynasty had documents issued by the government. When they were building irrigation works and roads, the government would look through the documents. If you didn't have some ability, you wouldn't have been able to get that document. The document proved that you didn't have to pay rent and were mediocre. As for the transfer, you were considered a technician. Ordinary people did the hard work, while skilled craftsmen handled the complicated issues and gave instructions. For example, building plank roads on cliffs. The others listened to his instructions, but they could not fix it. They hung there with ropes, unable to drive in the wood. Only then did the craftsmen personally take action. A group of certified craftsmen used ropes to descend. After discussing with each other, they began to operate. The wood was quickly fastened. When Li Yi was repairing cars, the bearing sleeves of the crankshafts or short shafts were stuck when they were about to go in. In the past, the method used was to smash it, without knowledge or experience. Later, he learned to roast it with a blowtorch, and it went down as soon as it was roasted. Some precision ones also needed to spray liquid nitrogen, using the principle of cold contraction. In addition, wax was melted, and the wax was put in place. After heating, the wax melted, and the parts were just stuck in place. This was a craftsman, not something that could be done normally. And to become a master, it was either a very delicate operation, or a big project like Dijianjian. It was two extremes. Ma Jian had a certificate. He was a carpenter, a stonemason and a bricklayer. The government looked for people and checked the documents. Aya, this person had several certificates. Come over quickly. In that case, why test him? No matter how good he was, he couldn't compare to the craftsmen of the Li family Zhuangzi. He had to learn to enter Zhuangzi. It was easy for people with certificates to teach. They didn't have to start from the basics. For example, Ma Jian could make tables and chairs at home when he was 5 or 6 years old, make mortise and tenon, carve and hollow. How solid were his basic skills? Li Yi meant that all the craftsmen who could come had no problems with their skills, and they could learn later. As for Ma Jian, he didn't even need a lie detector. If he was really so shrewd, why would he leave his hometown? Ma Jian didn't know Li Yi's evaluation of himself. He heard Li Yi's words and became excited. He ran over and squatted in front of the little robot. He stared at the little robot and said solemnly, Li Dongzhu, I'll take the test. I won't embarrass you. I want to enter Li family Zhuangzi with my ability. Baigu. No wonder you were ostracized. Are you stupid? It was like when His Majesty found someone to be the Prime Minister. He could have been promoted directly, but he didn't and wanted to compete with others. He only considered the problem of ability and didn't think about His Majesty's prestige. If His Majesty said you could do it, you could do it. Once the imperial edict was issued, who would dare to say anything? Even if His Majesty found a fool to be the Prime Minister, you have to accept it. Otherwise, you can come to His Majesty and call a deer a horse? Okay, take the test. Overall score, the robot said. Li Yi had a helpless expression. Princess Yongmu and Xiao Lan covered their mouths and laughed. Baigu also laughed. Good, not bad. It was really reassuring to have such a person. How good would it be if Xiao Yi could be like Ma Jian? What a pity. Who could scheme against Xiao Yi? Xiao Yi, go accompany your beauty. We're going to eat, Baigu said to the robot. Okay, old bye. Do you want to eat barbecue tonight? The kind with skewers. I'll barbecue it myself, Li Yi asked. Sure. Drink some beer too. The temperature is high today. Baigu craved alcohol. Then eat less now. If you eat too much, you won't be able to eat tonight. Goodbye. Li Yi said again. The little robot turned its head. Baigu looked at the pile of food on the plate in front of him. You have to be careful and always be on guard. Otherwise, you'll fall into a trap if you're not careful. Here, you two eat. I'll drink the soup. Baigu was speechless. Was this the Prime Minister's magnanimity? Using virtue to win people over? One of the lackeys came over, picked up the plate, and quickly finished it. Baigu's appetite was incomparable. Baigu switched to a bowl of stewed egg soup. He didn't want to drink stewed chicken soup. The child was happy to see Baigu. He ate the same as me. By Zaifu, I'll go register after eating. Ma Jian chewed on the pork shoulder and said in a muffled voice, Okay, register well. Baigu nodded. At this moment, he really wanted to switch the fool in front of him with Xiao Yi. At least he wouldn't be schemed against. The child felt that the old man was friendly and said seriously, The mushrooms in this soup are delicious. Baigu put on a kind and benevolent smile. Yes, delicious. This is pine mushroom. It tastes like meat when chewed. It also has a bit of the earthy taste of pine resin. Baigu realized that Xiao Yi was really generous to the child. She used red pine mushrooms to make stew. Moreover, they were all small, called pine cubes. They were most suitable for making soup and stew. Xiao Yi said that they were called blood red rivet mushrooms. The smaller and more orderly they were, the more valuable they were. Now that Zhuangzi had collected some with great difficulty, he gave them to the children. It's not a loss to eat this bowl of stewed egg soup. We'll eat skewers tonight. Baigu was in a good mood. You want to scheme against me? Humph. Do you believe that I won't eat 2 more bowls of stew and make you poor? Chapter 1946. After finishing a bowl of steamed egg soup, Baigu finished its task. It took the 2 followers who were not full yet and wandered around. The little robot was pushed away under the gaze of the child. It didn't want to walk by itself because it was afraid of wasting electricity. Ma Jian gulped down the remaining half bowl of soup and burped. He rolled up his sleeves and wiped his mouth. Mom, take good care of the child. I'm going to register now, and I'll definitely pass the exam. When I earn money, I'll buy you a set of clothes and shoes first. You can make the clothes and shoes, and I'll make a full set of jewelry for you. You haven't enjoyed anything with me. You'll see what I'll do in the future. After saying that, Ma Jian touched his son's head and strode away. After walking for more than 20 steps, he stopped and looked around. Where was the registration place? Dad, go that way. Ma Shi's eyes were filled with tears, but she held back her laughter and pointed in a direction. Yes, it's a big place. I can't remember the way. Ma Jian remembered and walked towards that direction. Hurry up and eat. When we have money, I'll make new clothes for you. You study hard and work for the Li family Zhuangzi. Then you can find a wife. You have to be sweet. Look at your father. He doesn't even know how to coax people. He even has to let me buy the clothes myself. He makes the jewelry himself. I'm afraid that others don't know his little ability. Ma Shi's face was filled with a happy smile as she talked to her son. Okay. The child didn't know anything about finding a wife. If his parents were happy, he would be happy. 3 people wearing the Li family Zhuangzi's standard women's clothes came over. The dark pattern of ba on the chest of the clothes indicated that it was the embroidery work of the Zhuangzi. Are you Sister Shi and our lovely Goodener? The leading woman sat at the table, as if she was familiar with them. The other 2 women each put a bag of dried meat floss in front of the child. The other woman put down 6 oranges and handed one to Ma Shi. Then she began to peel them. Ma Shi wanted to get up, but the others were still sitting. She was at a loss of what to do. Don't stand on ceremony. We'll be a family in the future. After Goodener finishes eating, let's find a place to clean up the house. Once they entered Zhuangzi, they did not have to live together with the others. Everything was ready-made, so it was up to them to decide how to arrange it. I'm the female manager in charge of logistics in Zhuangzi. My surname is Zhang. Dongzhu gave me a name. My given name is Lian. The woman who called herself Zhang Lian smiled as soon as she spoke, giving off a feeling of closeness. Sorry to trouble Sister Zhang and my 2 younger sisters. Ma Shi suddenly felt a kind of warmth. She had found her home. She knew that ever since Bai Zaifu arrived, her man was considered a member of the Li family Zhuangzi. However, Jian was stubborn and insisted on taking the test. The child looked left and right, his eyes filled with curiosity. When someone fed him meat floss, he didn't refuse. It was his first time eating meat floss, and it was delicious. Another woman from Zhuangzi peeled an orange and placed it in front of Ma Shi. Sister Shi, eat. Ma Shi looked at the orange and secretly swallowed her saliva. I've already eaten. I can't eat anymore. You can't not eat anymore. Donkey eggs still need milk. How can they lack nutrition? Zhang Lian broke open the orange and fed it to Ma Shi. Ma Shi ate 2 pieces in one bite, chewed and swallowed. Sister Zhang, are these fruits given to you by Zhuangzi? The 3 of them laughed. Sister Shi, do you think there's a limit to the number of fruits you can eat in Zhuangzi? How many fruits can one person get? There's no such thing. You can eat as much as you want. If you want to eat, you can eat it as a meal. I'm just afraid that it can't fill your hunger. You don't have to earn your own food, clothes, and accommodation. As for jewelry, after you get your monthly allowance, you can exchange it for gold and silver to find someone to make it. Oh, I forgot. Your husband knows how to make it. Just ask him to think about what kind of jewelry to make with others. Zhang Lian continued to feed Ma Shi and explain the situation. Ma Shi understood what she said. Her husband's skills were not good enough, so he had to learn from others. Her husband was very good. What kind of skills did the people in Zhuangzi have? She was full of doubts. After the child finished eating, she followed him. After walking for a while, the child was tired and was carried by others. After turning another corner, a group of buildings appeared in front of them. Bright glass windows were inlaid on the houses. Sister Shi, there are 5 people in your family. Donkey Eggs needs someone to take care of them now. Gooden Eggs will live with his brother for the time being, but the house will be set aside first. The house arranged for your family has 5 rooms, 2 living rooms and 2 bathrooms. The bathrooms are in the house. The craftsman in Zhuangzi made a pump to pump water. The pressure is not very high. It needs to be relayed twice to send the water up. Zhang Lian introduced. She was happy that there was water upstairs. In Li family Zhuangzi, people didn't go to the water. They had to go downstairs to go to the bathroom and use the night bucket at night. Ma Shi didn't understand the latter part of the words. She only knew that her family had 5 sleeping rooms and 2 living rooms. Why did they need 2 bathrooms? The house had 6 floors. The main body was made of reinforced concrete. The stairs were iron frames and covered with wooden boards. The iron handrails were painted with exquisite patterns with lacquer. The edges of the wooden steps were carved. If they weren't too busy recently, the craftsmen in Li family Zhuangzi could make the style of carved railings and painted buildings. They could deal with it later. After a while, new craftsmen would join them. They could do it. When they entered the house, it was white. It was a big house with 5 rooms, 2 living rooms, and 2 bathrooms. It was more than 260 square meters. It was said that there were several rooms and living rooms. In fact, there weren't any. Now there are only load-bearing walls. The walls are coated with slaked lime powder. Our family designed it ourselves. There are ready-made templates for reference. For the other rooms, the lime powder can be scraped off from the walls, and there are additional colored paint. If we don't install walls with wood, we are afraid of water. There is also a set of stairs outside. If there is water, we can choose one to escape. The house has wood. You can see what you want. You can make it yourself. Everyone will help you. Zheng Lian continued to introduce. They were all craftsmen. They knew how to deal with it themselves. The load-bearing walls couldn't be moved. The other rooms were empty. There were various layouts on the drawings. There were more than a dozen kinds of decorated rooms for comparison. If the new craftsmen couldn't even do this kind of work, how did they pass the examination? Did they make a fake certificate? Ma Shi kept nodding. She was satisfied. Very satisfied. As for the furniture and the annexed rooms, her husband could deal with them easily. Her eldest son could make stools and tables. It was just that he was very slow and weak. Won't you disturb others when you are working? Ma Shi thought of a very important question. Her husband was very loud when he was working. Go to the workshop. Not at home. There are few tools at home. It is tiring to move materials up and down. Sleep on the straw mats first. There is no cooking in the house. Wait for your husband to tidy up the room. After looking at the room, we will move the mats and bedding. The toilet can be used. It is flushed. There is a float valve. Just pull it. Zheng Lian brought Ma Shi to look at the toilet. It was not waterproof or tiled. It was very simple. Flushing the toilet would not work if there was too much water. It would seep down. After looking at the toilet, Ma Shi suddenly realized that her husband still had to learn. Her husband had never built such a house before. However, she believed that he would be able to learn it quickly, as long as someone was willing to teach him. Her husband was very smart in this aspect. After looking at the room, especially the glass windows, the group went down to move things. A lot of things were placed on wooden boards connected by ropes. They were pulled up to save time running up the stairs. Just as the straw mats were laid out, Goodener lay on them and fell asleep. Ma Shi felt a little inferior, but he didn't give up. Younger sister Shi, you might not know this, but we were testing you just now. Your body coordination and learning ability are very strong. When we were learning how to knit sweaters, we were far behind you. After that, you will have a new assessment, and we will arrange things for you based on your ability. Some things were bestowed by the heavens and could not be changed. Some were hardworking, some were loyal, and some were eager to learn. The villagers were learning every day and constantly improving. This was what Dongzhu valued the most. When a steed leaps, it cannot take 10 steps. When an inferior steed passes 10 times, its merit lies in its reluctance to give up. If you give it up, rotten wood will not break. If you persevere, you can carve gold and stone. Zheng Lian explained. She was in charge of this matter. Not only did she take care of Ma Shi, but she also had to teach the women of the other craftsmen who came later. She would first assess them, and then guide them. She would let the newcomers integrate into Zhuangzi. Zhuangzi had its own cultural heritage. She would set an example for them, tell them how to reach that height, and encourage them to work hard. Ma Shi listened attentively. She didn't understand the rest of the words, but she knew that Li family Zhuangzi was different. She found that the 3 people she met did not plot against her. It was not that they didn't know how to plot against her. How could they not know how to plot against others, if they could teach her and assess her while knitting sweaters? Sister Zheng Lian in front of her was always teaching her. She was very patient, and did not see any scheming. Sister Zheng, you are so knowledgeable. How did you learn? Ma Shi asked enviously. I learned in Zhuangzi. My husband was originally hired by Yao Cheng to work in the Hall of Governmental Affairs. At that time, it was called Ziwei. He had to compete with my family's Dongzhu Zhuangzi. He transferred craftsmen to build a mansion alone. In the end, he still lost. We were arranged to work in Li family Zhuangzi. My husband was the same as your husband. He only knew how to work all day long. Zheng Lian smiled and talked about the past. Yao Chong worked so hard and finally joined the tutelage. Ma Shi laughed together. You used to say the same thing to the Zaifu. While laughing, she suddenly realized that Sister Zheng Lian's husband could be chosen by the Zaifu in the past. Then his ability. The craftsmen of Li family Zhuangzi were like this? My husband came in, and he really had to learn. To be chosen by the Zaifu and compete with Li family Zhuangzi in craftsmanship. How strong must he be? Let's go and see our family's donkey first. Then we'll see Ma Dan. They should be sleeping too. Especially Donkey. He has acute pneumonia, and is suffering. Sister shouldn't Donkey be the second child? Why did he become the third child? Is it to fool the heavens? They were made of sorghum rice. Good Nur, you haven't eaten this before, right? Here. He broke off a bit, and stuffed it into his younger brother's mouth. Good Nur ate it for the first time. It was delicious. Although he was small, he was very clever. He lowered his voice and asked his brother, Where did it come from? Take whatever you want, eat it. Ma Danner smiled and said to her brother, Brother, you should eat too. Good Nur felt relieved. The two brothers happily ate the popcorn sticks. This was probably the best thing they had eaten this year. In their entire lives. They were too young, so it was hard to say. Ma Shi's smile didn't disappear. She finally felt the warmth of a family, something she didn't dare to think about before. As long as she entered the Li family Zhuangzi, she would receive such treatment. She could take any fruit and children's delicious food at will. Where did her man go? Why wasn't he back yet? Xiao Yi, make some small skewers. You roast them. You will be full after eating 2 big skewers. Bai Gu looked like Li Yi, who had gone back to take an afternoon nap after patrolling his territory. When he woke up, he found the drawing and asked someone to make a sample. The small skewers can only be fried. How can they be roasted? Li Yi refused. They couldn't be roasted. They couldn't even be put in the oven. The meat was only so big. It would shrink when roasted. The small skewers were like the meat used to make yuxiang shredded pork. When cut, they were thin and thin. They were pitifully small. After cutting, they were marinated and slid with oil. Then they would expand. Have you ever seen roasted yuxiang shredded pork, or spicy shredded pork? So you can't do it? Bai Gu raised his chin slightly. It's useless even if you try to provoke me. There are big river prawns. I will take some of their meat, and smash them into balls. I will cook them for you. Is that okay? Li thought about how Bai Gu had helped out today. As a Zaifu, he had gone to look for a craftsman. He had given him face. Sure. There are also crab balls. Let's drink yellow rice wine tonight. Will you let the people who come later eat skewers? Bai Gu reminded him. Did anyone arrange for the Li family Zhuangzi to eat skewers tonight? I know. For those who eat chicken, don't let them eat fat. Even if they eat less oil and water, there won't be any problems eating chicken protein. Li nodded. Some people didn't eat meat. Once they ate meat, they would have a stomachache. This was caused by fat. In that case, this old man can rest assured. Help me fry a plate of tussa pupa. After Bai Gu finished talking, he raised his hands and covered his ears. What he meant was, don't talk to me. I can't hear you. Why do I feel that Zhuangzi has become sorrowful field square? The red braised pork is being stewed. Do you want to eat it tonight? Chapter 1951. At 9 o'clock in the morning, 3 trains entered Luoyang Station one after another. Last time, there were 2 trains, but today there was an extra one. The 3rd steam engine was tested and put into operation, while the 4th was being assembled. A passenger train ran to the front. As soon as it stopped, the doors opened, and the people from the government alighted. Some people had a place to stay in Luoyang. They brought their luggage, and hired a carriage to go there. The price of the carriage was fixed. There was no need to haggle over how many goods and people to bring from the train station to Luoyang Palace. Carriages, ox carriages, mule carriages and donkey carriages were priced separately. This way it would save time. Otherwise, it would be a waste of time to argue over a few jiao. Those who were reluctant to spend money could leave by themselves. There were also fixed carriages that did not cost money. They were Li family Zhuangzi's carriages. Those who alighted from the train directly boarded the carriages, and stayed temporarily at Li Family Zhuangzi. They were people who did not have a place to stay. The rent at Li Family Zhuangzi was cheap, and the food was not expensive. Those who were reluctant to spend money could drink free soup. Li Family Zhuangzi would arrange for people to go there. Those who wanted to find a job would tell them the location, and they would take a carriage from Li Family Zhuangzi. After alighting from the passengers, the passenger train would enter a fork in the road to add coal and water. This passenger train would go to Haizhou and pick up people along the way back to Luoyang. Those who wanted to go to Haizhou or the midway station directly boarded the train. No tickets were sold. The carriages entered the station at the back and left. A group of people rushed up to help unload the goods. They could make money from this. The station sold all kinds of food, mainly wontons, which were sold on the spot. Give me a bowl of wontons. Give me 2 vegetable buns over there. A bailiff in charge of patrolling finished his work and looked for a place to eat. He was also in charge of food safety at the train station. Those who made the buns were also made here and then steamed. He smelled and tasted the filling. If the taste was normal, he allowed others to sell it. He also collected management fees and no taxes. The steamed bun seller delivered 2 chicken stuffed buns and turned to leave. Stop, collect the money. The bailiff glanced at the buns and hesitated. He took out 60 jiao and placed it on the table. Leftover buns should be given away as gifts when we go back. How can I ask for money? The bun seller shook his head and refused. This is the first time I've heard of meat buns being given away. I'm afraid you're treating me like a dog. You're throwing meat buns at a dog, right? The yamen runner glared. It's really free. The bun seller continued to refuse. Ma Shishir turned her head and secretly wiped her tears. She finally knew how powerful Zhuangzi was. She didn't have to put all her attention on how to save her son because he was sick. She wouldn't be at a loss. There was someone in charge of Zhuangzi. She could continue to do other things and pay attention to how the doctors in Zhuangzi treated the child. She didn't understand medicine. Professional matters were left to the professionals. She just needed to provide the baby's milk. After a while, she would come back to hold the child. If she wasn't in Zhuangzi, she would have to find someone to get medicine for the child. She would go home to boil the medicine and wipe the child's body with a wet towel to cool him down. The child was uncomfortable. She cried with him. There was no other way. Who will fix the road that Ron came from? Bai Gu knew the situation. It's snowing in Chang'an. The road has been roughly repaired. It won't affect the traffic. Besides, they're all here. Li Yi said with a smile. Ron was really too sad. He received a call when he was eating skewers yesterday. A group of people and a group of dogs were coming over. They came here to help build the hunter's hut in Luoyang. Just like the governor, the surrounding mountains were arranged properly. The main thing was to organize the local hunters, communicate with those who needed to, teach those who needed to, and determine the rules. These rules were not only the hunter's rules but also Li Yi's rules. Some animals should be caught alive and raised as much as possible for medicinal purposes. He hadn't cultivated penicillin or sulfonamides yet. Fortunately, some Chinese medicinal herbs were useful. Many people died because they didn't have medicine to eat, especially when it came to external injuries and infections. After being injured and infected, they could only endure. Some people survived while others did. Washing the wound with soap immediately after being injured had a certain effect on dealing with infection. In addition, it was better to use medical alcohol. Every hospital in the Tang dynasty had medical alcohol in glass bottles. Ordinary people couldn't buy it. Li Yi needed some Chinese medicinal herbs. The lives of animals were not as precious as human lives. Even if killing a panda could save a person, he would do it. The hunter's hut had to be standardized and institutionalized. Li Yi was willing to provide some supplies, such as soap, alcohol, bandages, fireworks, and so on. As for food, he didn't need him. He bought game at a higher price, so the hunters had money to buy things to put in. Chapter 1953. Go there. There was a group of people and dogs at the station. From time to time, someone pointed at the grass and ordered the dogs. The dogs obediently went in to relieve themselves. A row of Li Family Zhuangzi cars were waiting. Some dogs relieved themselves in the toilet on the train, while others looked for a place to relieve themselves after getting off the train. The people around them stayed far away. The dogs were not small, but they didn't bark. Most importantly, they didn't bark. People were afraid of such dogs. Brother, get in the car. We are not in a hurry to enter the mountain today. Hu Feng held Brother Shi's arm. Okay. Old Man Shi replied. Hunters should not be impulsive. Unless it was a special situation, they should plan before acting. He got in the car first. A big car without a compartment would delay taking care of the dogs. Everyone put their simple luggage on the car. The children sat inside while the adults sat on the side. As the coachman cracked his whip in the air, the carriages headed towards the Li family's manor. The dogs shrank behind the cars and did not jump to the side. On the way, the dogs released by other families hid far away. They shook their heads and wagged their tails to show that they were not a threat. They didn't even dare to bark. Some dogs lay down with their bellies facing up and their heads on the ground. Brother, you will be in charge of the meeting. Hu Feng sat beside Brother Shi and wiped his crossbow. He was allowed to carry a crossbow. When they arrived at Luoyang, they used the Li family Zhuangzi's name to gather the other hunters for a meeting. The local hunters could ignore the Chang'an hunters, but they couldn't ignore the Li family Zhuangzi's call. I am old. I will live on the mountain for my retirement. You stay in the city to take care of your disciples. Li Dongzhu is close to you. Old Man Shi expressed that he didn't want to lead because he was tired. Brother Hu Feng had meritorious service and participated in military operations. His status was different from other hunters. The government could recruit and call other hunters, but Hu Feng could only invite him. Let's see what Li Dongzhu has to say. Hu Feng didn't argue. He couldn't be the real leader. Li had the final say in this matter. I heard that you have a flintlock. Old Man Shi asked about the weapon. No hunter didn't like good weapons. Yes, but I can't let others know. I carry it on my back when we enter the mountain. It has a long range. The best tool is actually binoculars. Animals are smarter than humans and can spot people from afar. Hu Feng said as he threw away the rag. Using both his hands and feet, he strung the crossbow with a kacha sound. At the same time he shouted, prepare the bows and arrows. In fact, there was no need for him to call out. Many of the prey sitting on the side of the cart had already swung the bows on their backs to the front and knocked the arrows. Suddenly, a dog jumped out of the bushes 40 or 50 steps ahead. It was normal for a dog to jump out. What was abnormal was that this dog's body shape was similar to other dogs. It was not afraid. There were several mountain guard dogs in the team, and there were more than 100 dogs that were second only to the mountain guard dogs. How can you be drooling with your tail between your legs? Don't you know how easy it is for the mountain guard dog to kill you? Howl, 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 howl. The dog came out and paused for less than 2 seconds. Then it barked and rushed towards a peddler who was carrying a pole. Help me, mad dog. The peddler who was carrying a load was walking through the streets. What had he not encountered before? He instantly understood what he had encountered. He dodged to the side, swung his pole and shouted, Go! Hu Feng shouted, crossbow in hand. Whoosh! 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 3 large dogs charged out from the side of the cart. They were no slower than a galloping horse, but the dogs were faster than a horse. The other dogs dodged to the side of the road to watch. They didn't charge forward. Their master hadn't given them any orders. Most likely they understood that the pole was enough. If they all charged forward, it would be too crowded, and they wouldn't be able to use their full strength. The mad dog took a hit from the pole and was sent tumbling. It flipped back up and continued to charge forward. The peddler was so anxious that he wanted to unhook the pole and swing it, but at this critical moment, he couldn't shake it off. He was still swinging it. The mad dog saw an opening. It took 2 steps forward, then leapt into the air and flew towards the peddler with its mouth open. The peddler loosened his pole and tried to leap to the side, raising his arms to block. Whoosh! Boom! One of the large dogs collided with the mad dog in midair. The mad dog was clearly at a disadvantage in terms of weight, and was sent flying. The large dog landed and charged forward again. The other 2 didn't jump. They were faster on the ground than in the air. They reached the mad dog first and swatted at it with their paws. They swatted at it, but there was no need to bite it. When the dog that had jumped up arrived, the 3 dogs surrounded the mad dog and swung their paws at it. The one that the mad dog wanted would dodge. Just as the mad dog was about to stand up, a slap from the side knocked it to the ground. The surrounding commoners were all dumbfounded. This was the first time they had seen dogs fight like this. Why didn't the 3 of them bite each other? Ow ow! Ow ow! The mad dog had truly gone mad. It howled and rolled about on the ground, trying to get up. Unfortunately, it didn't have enough stamina, nor did it have enough reaction time. It could only endure the slaps. There was nothing it could do. I want it alive, the farmer called out. Get the fishing net, Old Stone ordered, then said to his mountain guard dogs, you guys go. Quite a few large dogs joined in. Everyone cooperated very well. They didn't crowd each other, and they didn't cause any trouble for the other dogs. Can this mad dog's illness be cured? Some of the onlookers said. The mad dog is sick. It won't be cured. It'll die soon. These large dogs, though, are strong. Where are they from? The farmer from the Li family Zhuangzi came to pick them up himself. They must be from the Li Dongzhu. I guarantee it. Otherwise, how could dogs be so understanding? These are mountain guard dogs. One of them can change rooms in Luoyang Palace. White fur, don't be afraid. They won't bite you. Hey, you won't be able to be a mountain guard dog. A man with a large dog said from the side. His dog had a bit of white fur on its tail. Right now, his dog was doing its best to stand in front of him, but it was trembling. Standing in front of him meant that it was willing to block any danger for him. It was afraid, and it was indeed afraid. It knew that it couldn't win. Fortunately, it was better than the dog that was wagging its tail and belly in fear. At least it didn't compromise. Spread out. A village hunter called out as he threw out the net. The group of slapping dogs suddenly scattered around the area. The mad dog finally got up. It charged into the net, but the net wrapped around its body. Apart from barking and biting, it couldn't escape at all. Several people began to deal with the trapped dogs. They covered the dogs with another net and prepared something to block the dogs' mouths. Old Man sure led a dog to White Hair. White Hair's hind legs slipped, and it hurriedly stood up. It raised its head and took a step forward with difficulty. The dog led by Old Man sure also took a step forward. White Hair's body trembled rapidly. Suddenly, it barked twice and took another step forward. It stopped trembling. Look at it. It's been 9 months. You raised it as a mountain guard dog. You almost spoiled it. Good dog. It can still grow. Back off. Old Man Sure's words were for humans, but he said them to the dog. His dog took 2 steps back and didn't make a sound. White Hair's breathing was rapid. It stuck out its tongue to dissipate the heat, and continued to stand. The other mountain guard dogs came forward and sniffed at each other. Not long after, White Hair began to circle around the other dogs. Let's go to the Li family Zhuangzi together. Congratulations. Old Man Sure smiled. Thank you. You are. White Hair's owner trembled in excitement. He knew how difficult it was for White Hair to take 2 steps forward in front of the mountain guard dogs. When the other mountain guard dogs sniffed, it meant that they approved. Otherwise, they wouldn't pay attention to you. When I was young, I didn't know any better. I ran around aimlessly in the mountains and lost a good friend. As expected, I was blind in one eye. People call me Blind Jing Zhaoshi? White Hair's owner said 5 words. Chapter 1954. Drink some water and rest before we continue our journey. Old Sure took out their own basins for the mountain guard dogs that had participated in the battle. Piles of basins were thrown on the ground separately. The dogs came forward and held their basins in front of them waiting. Old Sure took out a new basin and poured water in front of White Hair. White Hair had gone all out just now. Dogs were different from humans. Humans had many ways to compete. Dogs could only show their strength through battle. Small pet dogs were not popular now. Dogs that would wet themselves when they smelled tiger urine or saw a tiger could only be ordinary guard dogs. In addition to fighting strength, mountain guard dogs had to have the fearlessness of hyenas when facing lions and the spirit of sacrifice to protect their owners. White Hair looked at the basin and turned to look at its owner. It didn't drink. Its owner was still excited. He squatted down and placed the basin in front of White Hare, so that it could drink. Sure. Master, why did you come to Luoyang? Oh, my name is Feng Taozheng. White Hare's owner asked curiously. He was grateful to Old Sure. White Hare had taken the two most important steps in its life. It could still grow. When it returned, they would give it meat even if they sold everything. In a few months, they could bring it up the mountain and earn back the money for meat. Li Dongzhu summoned me, repair the surrounding mountain huts, and put in the things that should be added. Li Dongzhu wants to set the rules. We will charge and break through enemy lines. Brothers, I wonder if you will do us the honor. Oh, not me. My junior brother is in charge. I'm old, so I'm helping to raise the dogs. Old Sure deliberately said this, so that Feng Taozheng could go back and tell others. It could be considered a test. Who is also here? Feng Taozheng turned to look. He saw 3 mountain guard dogs guarding a person with a crossbow on his back. In an instant he knew the other party's identity. Who would dare to casually carry a crossbow? Master Sure, my family's White Hare. Feng Taozheng knew that Hu Feng was famous, but he looked for Old Sure. Famous because Dongzhu cooperated with the Li family Zhuangzi to capture the enemy. Raising a dog depended on blind Sure. There were only 3 mountain guard dogs in front of Hu Feng, but there were 15 around blind Sure. Were mountain guard dogs so worthless? Clearly not. The other hundreds of dogs were not bad either. Even if they could not be mountain guard dogs, when the pups were born, they might become mountain guard dogs. Blind Sure was the one who had helped him with white fur just now. With a wave of his hand, a mountain guard dog came over. Only his White Hare had the courage to face them. Back then, when a group of them approached, the White Hare was finished. He could tell at a glance that his White Hare was 9 months old. He could only estimate that it was less than a year old. Rules. Old Man Sure agreed to help cultivate White Hare, but he had to abide by the rules. No problem. I'll hunt an adult wild boar on the mountain later. Feng Taozheng knew Jing Zhaoshi's rules. Hunters would personally hunt for wild animals for his tuition. He didn't care. The fact that he was able to find White Hare and nurture it to its current state was already a symbol of strength. Catch rabbits, donkeys, and roe deers. Shame catch wild boars. There's nothing in the surroundings. The Featherwood Flying Cavalry set out last night to sweep the nearby mountains. Uncle Sure forget about it. Warrior Feng had killed 3 wolves by himself in the winter, using his saber to fight. He stayed at the hunter's hut at night. The villagers on the mountain had a pregnant woman who was about to give birth, so they sent her down the mountain overnight. 5 wolves besieged them. He happened to be at the side, so he led 3 hunting dogs and rushed up. Of the 3 hunting dogs, 2 died and 1 was injured. He killed 3 wolves. After that, the local hunters moved out and brought the other 2 wolves who were bitten by the dogs down the mountain. The villager who received them helped to speak. He understood the situation. Old Man Sure looked at Feng Taozheng again and nodded. White Hare is like you. Let's talk about raising dogs later. He wasn't scolding Feng Taozheng when he said the dog was like Feng Taozheng. Many times, mountain guard dogs were more reliable than humans. The one who was injured was White Hare's mother. After giving birth to it, she died not long after. There were 5 of them, but the other 4 were dead when they were born. It's not good to have 2 cats and 1 dog, but I have to raise it well. Feng Taozheng bent down slightly and touched White Hare's head. White Hare turned its head to look, licked its master's hand, and then lowered its head to drink water happily. The surrounding people were watching the show. Today was so fun. Mad dogs, a group of dogs. A big dog that was as tall as a person would slap the mad dogs until they could only bark and couldn't get up. My dogs are not half as obedient as this one. I don't need to beat and scold them. Let's eat meat during the new year. Didn't you hear them talking? Their dog is a mountain guard dog. What's your dog called? I know that person is the desperate 3 wolves, the owner of the dog with white hair on its tail. What's the use of catching a mad dog alive? It's used to make rabies vaccine. The government has it. It's written in the newspaper. The main thing is to see if it's rabies. If it's not, we'll analyze the cause. How do you know? You are the villager just now. Sorry for the disrespect. While they were talking, the group of dogs finished drinking the water. They bit the basin and poured the remaining water away, piling it one by one. White Hare watched and tried hard to learn. It stacked the basin with its mouth. Seeing this, Feng Taojing finally understood why Blind Sure said that he had raised the dog useless. White Hare was actually so smart. The team continued on their way. Feng Taojing was sitting in the car, watching his White Hare, and the other dogs chasing behind the car. The people were responsible for spreading the news. Soon different versions of the story appeared, including the scene where the mad dog flew more than 10 feet high and was stared down by the mountain guard dog. It was like the peddler who ate wonton said that the wild boar's teeth were 1 tuft long, and its skin was 2 tufts thick. Li Yi Zhuangzi was busy with other things, and was making dog food. Zhuangzi had his own dog. He didn't want to become a mountain guard dog. He just wanted to use it normally. Usually, dry dog food was eaten together with diluted dog food. There was no problem in terms of nutrition, including raw meat. He didn't want a mountain guard dog, but the people in charge of raising dogs did. Li family Zhuangzi was rich in resources. The people who raised dogs didn't lack communication with their masters and colleagues. Every month, thousands of puppies were brought over to be raised. A small number were left, and most of them were sent away. In fact, they didn't raise mountain guard dogs. They raised shepherd dogs. Mountain guard dogs were used in the mountains, and shepherd dogs were used for herding. Although shepherd dogs had the word sheep in their names, their fighting power had nothing to do with sheep. They needed to herd sheep to fight wolves. Search and rescue dogs and guide dogs were also trained. They didn't need companion dogs. The Tang dynasty didn't need companion dogs. The relationship between people was good. At almost 9:30 in the morning, Hu Feng's team arrived. The dogs were taken to a place to settle down. Feng Tao was concerned about his white fur, so he followed them to take a look. Then he saw thousands of big dogs raised in a circle. The mountain guard dog and the dogs that followed them went in. There was no conflict between the two sides. Zhuangzi's dogs just came over to smell and recognize each other. They weren't afraid. Why is that? Feng Tao couldn't figure it out. I used to bring them here to get in touch with each other. They became familiar with each other. Li family Zhuangzi's dog food is delicious. Hu Feng knew the reason. It was the problem of the breeder. Everyone was put together. The mountain guard dog wanted to oppress Zhuangzi's dogs. Zhuangzi's breeder came forward. In the beginning, the breeder had winged knights with him. The winged knights wore protective suits. It was too easy to beat the dogs. The people in his and his senior's village taught the dogs not to be the boss here. No, there were too many dogs. 1,000 shepherd dogs couldn't beat 100 wolves. They would be torn apart. Chapter 1955. Don't worry about the dogs. Go take a bath and change your clothes, find a house, and change the environment of the children's school. Li received them in person. Everyone knew each other, so he spoke casually. Turning his head, he looked at Feng Taozheng. 3 desperate wolves. There has never been a hero from heaven in the world. There are only mortals who step forward bravely. What you are protecting is recognized by the people of the Tang dynasty. In 2 days, all the hunters around will come to Zhuangzi. His Majesty and I have only been here for a short time. We are busy all day and can't find time to see you. His Majesty has heard about you and told me that the soul of the Tang dynasty can be found among the people. Life and death together. Life is fickle and love is true. The Feng family has a son, no matter what he says. Warm blood covers the sky. The maple leaves are deep in autumn. The true colors of a man, the ways of the world. Heaven can ask, how many times have you been in the mortal world? The county will be honored by the emperor. Li knew Feng Taozheng's situation. He was like Zhang Shumpang who had his teeth blown. Zhang Xuanpeng's teeth were knocked out to save a drowning child. He almost died. Feng Taozheng in front of him was in the same situation, or even worse. 5 wolves besieged him, and he took 3 dogs to fight. When the hunter's matter was confirmed, he must publicize it and give him a title. Feng Taozheng actually understood. He was a hunter, but it didn't mean that he could read. As long as he was willing to learn, there was pinyin in the newspaper. Li Dongzhu, can you find a stonemason to carve a monument for my dog? Wood is also fine, but I can't carve it myself. Feng Taozheng made a request that even he felt was too much, to carve a monument for his dog. At this moment, All the dogs who died fighting for people or saving the dogs who died should be marked with a monument. Let the people know that dogs are like this, let alone people. Dogs of the 6 animals are killed for meat. Dogs who protect their masters are sung as a song. Li Yi agreed. It was no problem to set up a monument for his dog. His dog died to save people. Dogs were different from dogs, just like people were different from people. Some dogs were for meat, and some people did things worse than dogs. Police dogs, military dogs, drug detection dogs, guide dogs, and other dog breeds were all high in status. The purpose of erecting a monument for dogs was to motivate people. It had nothing to do with dogs, and dogs couldn't understand memorial tablets. Thank you, Li Dongzhu. Feng Taojing bowed deeply. For ordinary people, raising a dog was to guard the house and eat it. For hunters, their dogs were their lives. Otherwise, why would they want to own a mountain guard dog? For hunters, they would rather let their hunting dogs die of old age than die in battle. Feng Taojing could be said to be moved to tears. He was sad but happy at the same time. Li Dongzhu agreed. On the other side, Ron kept crying. He kept wiping his tears while Princess True Jade coaxed him. After I finished writing the Declaration of the People, His Majesty came to Luoyang. No one appreciated the Declaration of the People. Ron was a little tanned, but it didn't affect his handsomeness. His handsomeness was the kind of feminine, strong women liked. Princess True Jade was naturally domineering. Like Princess Golden Immortal, she was Li Longji's biological sister. They shared the same parents. Both of them had thought of domineering Li Yi, but unfortunately, Li Yi was even more domineering than them. He had no interest in them at all. You can play by yourselves. Don't drag me in. Ron didn't have Li Yi's ability, so he felt aggrieved. Royal brother already knows. The Declaration of the People isn't important. Do you understand what I wrote in the letter? Princess True Jade's heart ached. Aya. He got tanned. But looking at his robust body and strength, it wasn't bad. The moment you write a letter, it's about how Li Yi is, and how you want me to learn. If he's so powerful, why doesn't he come to my position? Ron continued wiping his tears. It was puzzling. What was forcing a handsome man to cry? Princess True Jade didn't know why, but she felt a little disgusted. Why are you so feminine? No, can you be a little more manly? Tell me. Why? Li Yi is just moving his mouth. I'm fixing roads, planting trees, and building water. Ron covered his face with both hands and whimpered. How tragic. If Li Yi were to change places with you to fix the mountain roads, the chancellors would have to kneel and beg him to come back. Princess True Jade thought of such a scene. Do you know how worried my royal brother and the chancellors are when Li Yi isn't around for a day? You're comparing yourself to Li Yi? Do you believe that if you stood in front of my royal brother and said this, he would beat you to death with a punch? Next year, I'll take the imperial examination. I want to pass it fair and square. Ron said in a fit of pique. I don't need your recommendation. I want my own ability. Good, you're ambitious. You've been fixing roads on the mountain for many days. Luoyang's Ministry of Works will arrange a position for you. Princess True Jade looked at Ron. It was great that he didn't need a recommendation. Do you know how difficult it was to recommend you? Her royal brother was now comparing everyone to Li Yi. Who could stand it? Ministry of Works? Yes. Minister Counselor? Ron expressed his satisfaction when he heard that he could become an official. Scribe. Princess True Jade said 3 words. So young. Ron also said 3 words. Do you know how to be a minister counselor? Do you know what a minister counselor does? Princess True Jade asked. I can learn if I don't know. Ron believed that he could quickly learn through hard work. At least he knew how to fix roads now. Why not just ask someone who knows how to be one? Princess True Jade asked again. Learn. A minister counselor was a 5th rank official. Was it a matter of learning or not? What rank is a minister counselor? Ron asked in a low voice, lacking confidence. You don't know? Go back and learn the ranks of officials in the Tang dynasty. A minister counselor of the Ministry of Works is a meritorious rank. If you work hard, you can enter the lower 9th rank. The ministers of the capital and Hunan are the same as the other ministries. The upper province is a 2nd rank meritorious rank. The middle province is a 3rd rank meritorious rank. The lower province is a 4th rank meritorious rank. and the county is a 5th-rank meritorious rank. Princess True Jade introduced that a meritorious rank was a 1st-rank meritorious rank. It seemed that this kind of question could not be asked of Li Yi. Li Yi liked to occasionally be a 1st-rank official for a day, but not a meritorious rank. What exactly do I do? Ron was happy when he heard that he had a chance to go up to a normal rank. Fix roads. Princess True Jade said the words that terrified Ron the most. Fix roads? Where do I live? What square is your Luoyang palace in? Ron lowered his head and said helplessly, You live at the construction site. I live on the Li family Zhuangzi mountain. I'll also print books to make money. Ron, take some time to write poems and I'll print them for you. Princess True Jade did not forget her printing business. She had a temporary residence in Ziwei City. The Luoyang Palace had not been assigned a palace. There were already many commoners in Luoyang. If they used money from the internal treasury to buy land to build a palace, it would be even harder for the commoners to find a place to live. Thus, Imperial Brother arranged a group of people to live in various places in the Li family Zhuangzi mountain. Just like in Chang'an, Imperial Brother was also saving money. She did not know how much money Imperial Brother had. Princess True Jade thought about it and said to Ron, Choose a nearby place to fix the roads. When the 10th day comes, I'll summon you to write a poem. Okay, I'll memorize the Analects of Confucius more. Ron, who planned to take the imperial examinations, agreed. He did not have the qualifications to negotiate. It was already good enough that he was given an official position. He could not be given one in the past. Presumably, Princess True Jade had sought out His Majesty many times for him. On the other side, Li Longji asked Li Yi about money. Brother Yi, His Majesty has too much money on hand. How should he spend it? Chapter 1956. Li Longji had a lot of money. Other than raising the winged knights and giving extra benefits to the 16 guards and soldiers at the border, he had no other expenses. Only the salt wells and gas wells in Shu still had a surplus. The gold mines that Li Yi pointed out were easy to mine were still being mined. There was sand gold in the river, and occasionally, there would be nugget gold as well. The big nuggets of gold were not smelted, and the others were sent to the Li family's storehouse after being smelted, a storehouse that belonged exclusively to Li Longji. Li Longji also had a large portion of the silver he brought back from the Japanese Empire, which was also stored in the warehouse. The earthly paradise and the bathing pool were the same in Luoyang. Membership cards from both sides were used. As someone who studied economics and finance, he knew that it was a waste to leave money there. It had to be circulated. Let's wait for another year or so. When overseas trade becomes popular, let His Majesty invest. With His Majesty's name, the merchants will participate. When others are jealous and attack our merchants, we will have a good reason to fight back. When His Majesty has a lot of money, we will see if we can launch a large amount of financial activities and issue currency in the name of the imperial court. At that time, the Li family Zhuangzi's exchange coupons will no longer be issued. I will slowly buy them back and only keep the currency of the Tang dynasty. Li Yi told Li Longji not to worry. There were places to spend money, but the Tang dynasty did not need it for the time being. The imperial family participated in the handicraft workshops in Luoyang, so others did not dare to compete. The Li family Zhuangzi did not care about the others. As long as it was not illegal, everyone would rely on their own means. Of course, if a certain industry in the Li family Zhuangzi suddenly said that they would jointly set the price, the others would immediately follow and join forces. For example, Guangzhou Prefecture's export products were all united. Foreign merchants would not be able to defeat them one by one. Fine. It's still September. We shouldn't be hunting. Fortunately, we are only cleaning up the surroundings. After September, the hunters will enter the mountains. Let's have a meeting. Li Longji nodded. Speaking of hunting time, the hunters did not hunt. Hunting was forbidden in the 1st, 5th, and 9th months of the year, within 300 li of Jingzhou and Hunan prefectures. It was now the end of September. The winged knights were dispatched to clean up the surrounding area, which was far less than 300 li. In the Tang dynasty, there were laws and regulations regarding the replanting of trees and the growth and reproduction of animals, especially within 300 miles of the two prefectures. If a woodcutter cuts down a tree, he must plant another one within 30 paces. The more stable the imperial court was, the stricter the enforcement of laws. When war broke out, nothing could be done. The hunters were sharpening their knives and looking everywhere for the dog. Old Man Sher's village had 15 mountain dogs, which had established the village's reputation. When other hunters mentioned him, they called him Jing Zhaosher the Blind. In addition to Hu Feng's 3 mountain guard dogs, there were a total of 18 of them. The hunters of Hunan province could not compete with them at all. The village was similar to the winged knights. After entering the mountain, they directly swept through the area. I can't cure Lao Sher's eyes, but I can help him with his other minor problems. Li Yi continued to talk about Blind Sher. He had never seen such a big Chinese field dog before. It felt like the king of a big wolf pack. The difference was that the mountain guard dogs did not have the same oppressive feeling when they saw people. They were not as fierce as normal people. Wolves had to be on guard when they saw them. The mountain guard dogs' gazes were relatively gentle, especially when they saw the children in Zhuangzi. Let's go take a look and see the 3 desperate wolves. Who gave him that nickname? It's quite interesting. Li Longji pulled Li Yi to see the big dogs. He had heard how White Hair transformed. Like a warrior on the battlefield, it was useless to be afraid of death. No matter how big the enemy was, it would still charge forward. White Hair was a lone dog. It had a good foundation, but because it had not fought since it was young, it was always afraid. Today it had finally taken the 2 most crucial steps, just like when he fought against the Xuanwu Gate. Li Lang, I'm done. When the father and son-in-law were walking on the road, Princess Yomu rushed over with a small robot. Li Yi had small robots around him. She could find any small robot to know Li Yi's specific location. Princess Yomu approached and handed the phone pad to Li Yi. Does it look good? Li Yi took it in his hand and frowned. Princess Yomu was very nervous. How can there be such craftsmanship? This pad should only exist in heaven. How many times can it be found in the human world? The ingenuity of the mind is hard to compare to. The craftsmanship is high. The embroidery mother abandons the needle. 2 wild geese fly together. Why send a brocade pouch to a distant place? Spring comes and autumn goes. Naturally we live and die together. How can the word good be enough? Since it was because of the phone, it inevitably reminded people of Shen Shiruyun's poem. When the wild geese are gone, the book is hard to send. I am willing to follow Lone Muning and shine on Fubo Camp. If there was a phone at that time, how could the book be hard to send? When Tian has put in a lot of effort. Li Yi's brows gradually relaxed and he said a lot. Princess Yomu kept nodding. Yes, that's right. It's still my Li Lang who knows me. Li Longji looked carefully at his brother Yi's son-in-law. He actually wanted to say something just now, but he only said one word. Good. He was in a hurry to see others. He just had to deal with it. He didn't expect it. This brother, he actually praised him patiently. Fortunately, it was only for his daughter. Wen Tian, why don't you keep this? I really can't bear to use it. Li frowned again. It's okay. I'll hook a better one. This is my first time. I'm not familiar with it. Princess Yomu smiled and her eyes curved like crescent moons. Okay, let's go and see the big dog together. Li Yi said as he put the phone pad in the little robot's stomach drawer. Is it to keep me warm? The little robot was talkative. Why are you squeaking when I put something? I'll give you some straw to keep you warm. Li Yi said. You're the idiot. I won't let you put things in next time. The little robot reacted quickly. Ha 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 ha. Li Longji laughed and patted the little robot's head. You're the idiot. The other little robot said. If you keep talking, I won't charge you when you run out of electricity. Can't you see that I'm being pushed now? The electricity for talking is enough for me to bask in the sun. Do you believe that I'll knock you into a river? It's hard to say who will knock who. I'm waterproof. I'm not afraid. The 2 little robots bickered all the way. Li Longji saw Fang Taozheng. Fang Taozheng found a craftsman to carve a monument for his 3 dogs. The inscription was simple. In a certain year, a certain month, a certain day, a certain time. In order to save a pregnant woman, he fought a pack of wolves and died. White Hair's mother wrote that she died after giving birth. Death and death shouldn't be used on dogs, But it was written. The craftsman was Zheng Lian's husband. Ma Jian was watching from the side. Any craftsman who came for the examination would have no problem carving the monument, let alone the people in Zhuangzi. After everyone knew how the dogs died, they discussed and decided to let Zheng Lian's husband do it. Zheng Lian's husband's surname was also Zheng. His name was Zheng Xinlin, so Zheng Lian wasn't Zheng's wife. Zheng Xinlin originally wanted to carve the monument with a thin gold body to show the temperament of a dog. After thinking for a long time, he finally chose to carve the monument. It was upright and majestic. When Li Longji arrived, the others immediately bowed and greeted. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Zheng Xinlin continued carving, as if he didn't hear anything. Li Longji waved his hand and stood there watching. White Hair, who was sitting next to him, didn't understand the meaning of the monument. It saw Li Longji and walked over to him, wagging its tail. It could feel the aura of someone who had been in power for a long time. After wagging its tail a few times, it looked at Li Yi. Li Yi squatted down and reached out to scratch White Hair's chin. White Hair let out a comfortable whimper. Fang Taojing was scared and surprised. How could his white hair touch someone else's chin? Chapter 1957. This, Fang Taojing didn't understand. Had his white hair become a silly dog? Li Yi saw through his thoughts. When I was talking to you and then went to see the other dogs, I didn't take a shower, so there was a smell on me. Like the other dog owners, you had to respect me when you saw me. Your attitude affected White Hair. Ordinary people's dogs prioritize their own territory. They always bark at outsiders and are aggressive. A good dog prioritizes its owner. If the owner is not aggressive, the dog will not be aggressive, unless it senses that I am aggressive. Li Yi was talking about dogs to the hunters, but he was also talking about people. Some people felt that they had a good relationship with their friends. Their friends' dogs would bite them every time they went there. There were two problems. One was that the dog was stupid and not raised well. The other was that the dog's owner didn't treat you sincerely. You just felt that they were good to you. Of course, it was another matter if you were always teasing other people's dogs. You were too. Li Dongzhu also knows how to raise dogs. Fang Taojing thought about it and found that it was true. Everything has a spirit. Tao follows nature. Li stood up as he spoke. He took out alcohol from the robot's drawer and washed his hands. Even if the dog had just taken a shower, he still had to wash his hands after touching it. It was a professional habit. White Hair smelled the alcohol and quickly ran back to its owner. "Brother Ma, you just came to Zhuangzi. How are you adapting?" Li Yi said to Ma Jian. "I'm good. It's just that what I learned is too shallow." Ma Jian told the truth. He was very arrogant before. He knew all the questions that they asked him. After more contact, he had an epiphany. They were just asking questions based on his ability. Any one of Zhuangzi's craftsmen could beat him in any aspect that he was proud of. He was devastated. He was so sad. Like the stone tablet in front of him, he didn't know some of the techniques used by Zheng Xinlin. Fortunately, Zhuangzi didn't keep secrets from its own people. It taught everything. If you were willing to learn, it would teach you everything. The worst thing was that you knew some techniques, but couldn't do it because of your own reasons. In Zhuangzi, it wasn't about knowledge of techniques but talent. Fortunately, if talent wasn't enough, it could be made up for by studying better techniques. You think of a small tool that can solve the problem of technique. Then, everyone used this tool, and their skills were once again crushed by talent. There's no end to learning, and you have to be flexible when learning new skills. Make bold assumptions and carefully verify them. Rivers have changed, dams have increased. Due to the season of rice and wheat, hybridization was also successful. Burning mud to make pottery, adding glazed porcelain is just right. The firewood has arrived, and the coal has ignited the flame. Li Yi could tell that Ma Jian was in a predicament, just like when he was a resident doctor. It's all in the technique books, but you just can't practice it. Watching someone younger than you perform the surgery smoothly and comfortably, how could you not admit that he was a genius? However, all medical surgeries did not have to be performed by geniuses. How long would it take to remove an appendix? When the technology was spread to a certain extent, the overall strength of the company would also increase. Surgeries that could be performed by geniuses would be like appendectomies in the future. Most doctors could do it, but geniuses would have a higher level of difficulty. Li Yi spoke of great principles and encouraged the craftsmen. At the same time, he also taught Feng Taojing. Li Yi was doing what a superior should do. His identity changed back and forth. If he was facing ordinary people, his words would not be like this. He did not hold back, and the whiter the better. At the same time, he knew how powerful the craftsmen were. Anyway, he could not show many skills, and many craftsmen would pretend to be stupid. For example, if you said that a craftsman who could carve exquisite words and patterns on a stone tablet was illiterate, it was pure nonsense. He said that he was illiterate in order to survive. You're a young master from a rich family. You're married and have a mistress. Your mistress gave birth to a child and died, or your mistress died of illness. You have to carve a stone tablet. You wrote the inscription and found a stonemason to carve it. You're afraid that your wife will know. Which stonemason do you choose? Of course you're illiterate. The stonemason said that I'm just carving according to it. I don't know what it means. Sigh. That's right. Don't worry. There's also a blacksmith. You give him a picture, and he only knows how to forge according to it. He doesn't know anything else. Good. You give him a picture of a crossbow, and the blacksmith says that it's a farming tool. It's not easy to use, right? Fine, I'll carve it. While carving, he went to report that someone wanted to hide the crossbow. If you don't believe me, take a look. I'll carve out this and the others. I'll draw the whole picture for you. Do you see it? Is it a part of it? When the stonemason carved the words, the tip of the brush was brought out for you. You say that he's illiterate? You give a lathe worker a picture of a pipe. After the lathe worker looked at it, he'll tell you if it's a type of expanding screw. If you say yes, he'll take advantage of the fact that you're not paying attention. Someone asked me to change the barrel and pull the rifling for him. Done. While Li Yi was thinking about some interesting things, Zheng Shunlin blew on the stone tablet and put down the tools as if relieved of a heavy burden. It was his first time carving a stone tablet for a dog. He was very serious. The dog used its life in exchange for the life of the pregnant woman and the child. Li Lang, why didn't the villagers who were protecting the pregnant woman take action? Princess Yomu looked at the inscription and thought of some other people. They were protecting the pregnant woman. The wolves were there. They couldn't stop and had to continue on their way. Their purpose was to protect the woman and the child in the woman's belly. They went to fight the wolves. If something unexpected happened and the woman or the child died, why did they do that? Li Yi understood the villagers. The villagers were more superstitious at night and didn't dare to leave the pregnant woman who was about to give birth. They held torches and shouted, "Otherwise, I couldn't kill the wolves myself." Feng Tao was helping the villagers. How could they not help with their own matters? One person and 3 dogs faced 5 wolves at night. It was a sure death situation. The villagers followed and cooperated. The others continued to carry the pregnant woman down the mountain. It was only because he was really important that they mentioned him alone. It will be better in the future. The hunter's hut on the mountain will be guarded, especially the place near the residential area. There won't be wild boars and bears coming down the mountain to destroy the crops. It's even more impossible for wolves to take the children away. The newspaper should specially separate a place to introduce how to raise dogs. If you raise them well enough, they won't eat meat until they die. Li Yi told the crowd that he couldn't change what happened in the past. He would perfect it in the future. He would teach the people how to raise dogs well. At least when facing the wolves, the dogs couldn't be scared by the wolves. Shepherd dogs were like this. They weren't afraid of wolves. As long as they had the advantage in numbers, they could confront the wolves even if they couldn't win. At that time, the dogs he raised were useless. Even the Tibetan Mastiff, when a wolf killed it, the others didn't dare to move and hid far away. Look at the dogs patrolling with the People's Liberation Army. The wolves that could face the useless Tibetan Mastiff would definitely die if they met them. What kind of people raise dogs? The people who raise fighting dogs looked down on the people who raised Tibetan Mastiffs as babies. It was the same for the people who raised fighting cocks. More than 100 fighting cocks faced a few wolves. They could teach the wolves what fear was. That kind of fighting consciousness No matter what they faced, they were the best. It wasn't like hens didn't fight with goshawks before. Then a group of hens rushed over. It was noisy in the middle of the night. The farmer took a flashlight and went over to take a look. An eagle was lying in the fence of the chicken pen, twitching its wings and wailing. There was a group of roosters, hens, and chicks around it. GGG. GGG. Chapter 1958. Feng Taojing looked at the stone tablet and pedestal and reached into his pocket. Master, how much is it? Zhang Shumlin glanced at him. How much did you think about when you brought the dog to save people? How can I ask for money? It has nothing to do with money. Feng Taojing was embarrassed and withdrew his hand. He understood that they didn't want money. Li Lang, where is the tablet? Princess Yongmu asked. Why don't we put it in the battlefield? Ma Jian suggested. If it stands there, how can pregnant women and children live? Should we salute every time we pass by? Li Yi asked. Everyone was stunned and nodded. It was indeed not suitable. Put it next to the cemetery of martyrs. Let the hunters hold crossbows. Li Longji decided. The palace maids and eunuchs began to take notes and list them out. The dog of the Sher family village saved the people. In the mouth of a mad dog, they should also hold crossbows, Li Yi said. Okay. Li Longji paused for a moment before agreeing. He knew that it had nothing to do with saving people. Hu Feng's senior brother led a group of people and had countless good dogs. He also had to set rules for the hunters in Luoyang. Without a crossbow permit, people would think too much. The village was trustworthy. The villagers had children who came here to receive education in the Li family Zhuangzi. Ma Jian and Feng Taojing looked at each other and understood Li Dongzhu's position in the Tang dynasty again. In front of the emperor, he didn't call him Your Majesty and called him third brother. Just like the legends, the two maintained a special relationship. When others called him Your Majesty, they would automatically ignore it. Let's go eat. The dogs have an extra meal today. Li Yi saw white hair and looked at the stone tablet. He called out and went to see the dogs with Li Longji and the others. Other than the little puppies, the dogs usually ate 2 meals a day. Today was a happy day, so there was a little dog food. There was no milk, unless the dog was obviously deficient in calcium. There were more than 1,000 dogs. It wasn't that a group of dogs would crazily fight over dog food. At most, the dogs wouldn't dare to eat without an order. The Li family Zhuangzi's dogs were like military dogs. The dogs picked up their own bowls and lined up. Rows and rows of dogs found their own places. It was a spectacular sight. Someone pushed a cart to put food in the dog's bowl. The dog sat there and looked at the food, but did not eat. It waited for the order to allow it to eat. White hair went in. Several times, it wanted to bite first, but when it looked at the other dogs, it wisely held back. Feng Taojing was dumbfounded. He felt that if these dogs were to enter the mountains, dogs were eating happily. But some people were not. Rumor has it that the Dongzhu Li Yi of the Baishui Li family Zhuangzi in Chang and has found a place to promote Taoism and Buddhism. The place they were looking for was in a mountain ravine, north of Luoyang Palace, south of the Yellow River. The news had yet to reach Mount Song, but it had already spread through Luoyang Palace. Some of the squares in Luoyang Palace had temples, and some had Taoist temples. At the same time, there was another more specific rumor. Li Yi wanted to collect a 50% tax. He felt that the temples and Taoist temples did not have that much money. If they moved to a new location and collected the money, they would not have to pay the tax for the next 50 years. The monks and Taoists in Luoyang Palace rushed to spread the news. The people who came from Mount Song to find Baigu quickly sent people back. The monks and Taoists were smart. They did not believe that it was a rumor. Who would dare to brazenly spread rumors about Li Yi in Luoyang Palace? The people who were captured that night had yet to return. The entire Luoyang Palace was filled with a peaceful atmosphere. There was no theft or refusal to pay without food, much less kidnapping and selling children and women. It was now a period of strict crackdown. There was a red line. Whoever touched it would die. When they thought of the matter of Baigu not collecting a tenth of the taxes from the temples and Taoist temples, they instantly entered a state of epiphany. Baigu said a tenth of the taxes, but we did not agree. Li Yi wanted a tenth of the taxes. Pay the money, or move to a large ravine. Choose one of the two. A group of monks and Taoists gathered to discuss a solution. They were not in the mood to eat lunch. They were more awake when they were hungry. Why don't we take over Grief Tian Square again? The monk in charge of Yukai Square's De Yun Temple spoke first. Some of the bigger temples had abbot inside. The abbot of the smaller temples did not enter. Just like Taoist temples, there were Taoist masters in the bigger temples, while the smaller ones only had abbot. The abbot and Taoist masters did not participate. They were revered, so they hid at the back. The abbot of De Yin Temple was smart. If we pay less, how can the daily expenses of Grief Tian Square compare to the 50% tax? Managing Grief Tian Square would give us a good reputation. I'm afraid that won't work. Grief Tian Square is managed by the Tang Dynasty's Chao Tianxia Fund. The saints are respected. The abbot of Jingyan Temple in Cultivation Square shook his head, indicating that it was impossible. Why would the saints not want a good reputation? Maybe we can ask Gong Fong to help us, and talk to the students and officials coming and going. The abbot of Huayan Temple in Jingxing Square thought of an idea. He wanted to use the women and see Gong Fong to save the country. With so many people talking at the same time, Li Yi would not be able to bear the public opinion. Even if Li Yi was not afraid, how could His Majesty and the chancellors ignore it? The abbot of Xuanjiao Square looked at him and said, "Why do you want to drag the women of red dust and Si Gong Fong into the discussion in your temple?" He looked down on the other party. "If you can't do it, you can find a woman to help you. Would the women in Si Gong Fong dare? Find lay Buddhist Baigu again?" The abbot of Heavenly Palace Temple on the south side of Tianjin Bridge thought of Baigu again. If that's the case, it won't be 50% tax. Li must know that the tax increase is for lay Buddhist Bai. The abbot of Taiwei Palace in Jieshan Square narrowed his eyes and said, "Everyone knows what's going on. You still want to find trouble for yourself? Wouldn't it be better if you agreed to the 10% tax? Why do you have to find Baigu?" Baigu was in charge of the money bag of the Tang dynasty. Even Li Yi was under his control all day long. How could he let go of the temple? Do you think that if he asked Li Yi for money, Li Yi would laugh at him? The money was not obtained by Baigu. Li Yi was the person behind the finance of the Tang dynasty. Friends, don't be like this. The current plan is to only care about Li Yi. Why don't we invite him to talk about Tao? The abbot of Taiyuan Temple in Jieshan Square was afraid that everyone would quarrel. Now they should unite against the outside world, and not fight among themselves. Why don't we call Li Yi over, and let everyone talk about Buddhist scriptures and Taoist scriptures? We can suppress Li Yi and let him know how powerful we are. Isn't it rumored that he knows everything? Let's see if he can do it. We have so many branches. Even if he is really a reincarnated person, how many can he master? Good. The abbot of Dao Chong Temple in Suifu Square waved his horsetail whisk to show his approval. Yes, bring Li Yi over, so that he can understand the mystery of Tao and the wonders of Buddhism. The others did not have any other good ideas, and could only choose this plan. They all agreed. After the matter was settled, the Taoists decided to have lunch. It was just past noon, and they were hungry. The monks were in a dilemma. They said that they would not eat after noon. Should they eat? They did not eat much in the morning. They had something on their minds. Everyone went back to their own places. Some places were quite far away. It was better to go back and eat. They would panic if they were hungry. Li Yi was eating. Even the dog had an extra meal. How could he lack the money for food? A call came. There was a spy among the group of abbot. When he heard the news, he quickly reported it. Sun Xian came and said it. After that, he left and found a place to eat. Brother Yu. Li Longji knew the situation and asked Li Yi if he was going. Chapter 1959. Baigu chewed on his food and looked up at Li Yi. He was friends with monks and Taoists, so he knew how powerful those people were. In his opinion, Li Yi shouldn't have any problems with Buddhism. Li Yi had translated many sutras. Moreover, those sutras belonged to various schools. How could he know everything if he wasn't proficient? In terms of morality, he didn't know if Xiao Yi could do it. Fortunately, Taoism was local and didn't need to be translated. Xiao Yi definitely didn't have any problems with the contents of the books. Did he take the time to learn it? It was all his fault. He shouldn't have met them. They didn't even give him 1/10 of the taxes. Xiao Yi paid taxes for Zhuangzi. Most of them were 80%, but Xiao Yi took the initiative to pay. Song Jing didn't gloat. He frowned. I'm afraid that Buddhism and Taoism will unite and spread unfavorable words among the pilgrims and lay practitioners. Speaking ill of Gangrou and Henan, the people can tear down their temples and monasteries. During the locust plague, Gangrou personally came to Luoyang. The people call that small mountain suppressing Locust Mountain. How many people have benefited from Li family Zhuangzi's kindness? What have the temples and monasteries given them? Let's not talk about other things. The people of Xiaoluanan village can rush into Luoyang Palace and slaughter Buddhism and Taoism. Zhang Jiling had confidence in Li Yi. The people secretly offered incense to His Majesty and Gangrou's longevity tablet. Would he dare to say anything bad about Li Yi? Li Yi didn't eat the staple food. He ate braised food and drank beer. The chicken liver was sauced and had a marinated color. It tasted good. He drank a mouthful of beer and sent the chicken liver to his stomach. I don't have time. If I say tax, then tax. Why should I discuss the law with them? Li Yi wasn't afraid of eminent monks or Taoist masters. He hadn't even finished translating the Buddhist sutras. It was much worse than when he was. As for Taoism, in the next 1,000 years, countless people had studied and written books. The content was much richer than now. He didn't have to memorize it. If he really wanted to discuss the law, he could check the information at any time. He would know where it came from and the other definitions of the source. If it were me, you wouldn't even be able to find the place if I said a sentence. I haven't even translated it yet. Xiao Yi, can you take care of them? Bai Gu asked straightforwardly. That's easy, but why should I go? Li Yi spoke as if he was looking down on them. But in his heart, he had his own thoughts, which were easy to deal with. Then, Bai Gu didn't know what to say. He wanted to argue with Li Yi now, but he didn't have the confidence. When they find us, tell them that it's okay. When the time comes, let the people see it together. If they won, the Li family Zhuangzi would pay the taxes for them, not a penny less, so there would be accounts. If they lose, give half of their land and property to the Li family Zhuangzi. You can give them money or land. Li Yi has thought of a way to attack religion. Do you dare to bet? Losing the bet was not just a matter of money, but also social status. If Li Yi loses, they can be exempted from taxes. Sui said, taxes are national affairs. How can it be changed because of a personal bet? Yao Chong understood Li Yi's meaning. Exactly. Li Dan nodded in agreement with Yao Chong's words. Xiao Yi could not represent the imperial court's laws. If he lost, the taxes would not be changed, and he would help pay the money. If he won, the taxes would not be changed, and the things he won would belong to him. Li Lang, are you confident? Princess Yongmu was worried. I remember the past. During the Ganges Sand calamity, a Buddha was born, and his name was Infinite Light. Li Yi said. After he finished speaking, he looked at the little robot next to him and signaled with his eyes. The little robot said, the 12 Tathagata, one after another. The last Buddha was called Transcendent Moonlight. The other little robots followed. That Buddha taught me to chant Buddha's samadhi. For example, there are people who focus on remembering and forgetting. Such two people, if they meet or not, or if they meet or not. As they chanted, background music began to join in. It was very light and ethereal. There was also the sound of the wooden fish, and the chanting of the sutras in the round language. For a moment, the chanting of the Zen, resonating and echoing, seemed to be near and far, lingering and lingering. Everyone was confused. If they didn't know that Li Yi had started, and the little robots followed, they would have thought that Buddhism had suddenly arrived. Eat. If you gamble, I'll add oil for you. Li Yi said and told the little robots. Thank you, Dongzhu. The little robots shouted together, and the voice just now disappeared in an instant. Change the battery and go to work. Li Yi said again. Someone came over to help change the battery. The little robots had to work and find the craftsman who wanted to enter the Li family Zhuangzi's craftsman. There were robots over there. They were afraid that there would be no electricity, so they would take over. Others chatted normally with a group of craftsmen. The little robots were responsible for monitoring the craftsman's physical data and recording it so that they could detect lies later. Xiao-yi, this can't sleep. It's useful to listen to. Noble consort Lu found something good. Put the audio data into the recorder later. Listen to it if you want. To put it bluntly, it's an application of sound resonance, such as horns and drums on the battlefield to command and inspire morale. When used as a weapon, it can affect a person's nervous system. It's also a kind of medical treatment. It's very difficult to learn further. Li Yi saw that noble consort Lu liked it and provided it to everyone. When they couldn't sleep, it had a hypnotic effect. Compete with them. Win half of their land and real estate. Bai Gu was excited. Oh my god, Xiao-yi actually had such a method, he said as he went to find wine and snatched the beer in front of Li Yi to drink to calm down. Li Yi picked up an anise-flavored bean. The light and shadow effect is useless. It's more powerful than the water curtain. I'm just afraid that they won't dare to gamble. I can't make a move for nothing. I'm someone who earns a lot of money every second. How can I have the leisure to play with them for nothing? Li Yi reassured everyone and felt that this matter was feasible. They could get a lot of land in one go. Why did monks and Taoists need so much money? If they wanted to print books, they could find Princess Jingxian. Li Yi turned his head and saw Princess Jingxian at another table praying to the little robot with a pious face. Then her eyes lit up. She didn't need to guess to know that she wanted to bring a little robot home. Li Lang, can they provide accompaniment alone? I'll sing and they'll play music for me? Princess Yongmu was smart and thought of another use. There were so many voices mixed together just now. Yes, put a few more in different places. It has a surround sound effect. I'll add a low vibration to the ground. It's the most exciting when listening to the drums. Li felt that it was okay. He built a separate house for Princess Yongmu. Yes. Princess Yongmu smiled and lowered her head to eat the braised pork. She had a separate dish. The braised pork stewed with rice beans was stewed until the pot was dry. She didn't add any noodles. At noon, she went all out and wanted to eat 2 bowls of rice. If she really couldn't eat, she would give half a bowl to Xiaolan. Xiaolan ate slowly, and specially ate the beans in the rice beans. Li Longji was completely relieved. With the cooperation of the little robot, even if both sides said the same thing, the effect would be much worse if one had background music and the other didn't. When the other side spoke, he would speak. When the other side opened their mouths, they would immediately chant. How could the two sides compare? Brother Yi, go to Shaluo village to soak in soup in 2 days. Li Longji was in a good mood and wanted to take a bath in the hot spring. There were many hot springs in Luoyang, but he was unwilling to enter. When I finish recruiting the craftsmen the day after tomorrow, I can use these 2 days to make arrangements. Li Yi set the specific time. Chapter 1960. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. There was no movement in the temples and monasteries of Luoyang Palace. They were waiting for their companions from Mount Song to arrive. Mount Song's Buddhism was never weak. Some temples and monasteries were even built in Ziwei City. They had many followers. In the past, religious beliefs were powerful here. Those in power had to think twice before making a move. Even if they wanted to deal with people, they had to suppress them while pulling them along. When suppressing Buddha, they pulled Taoism. When suppressing Taoism, they lifted Buddha. Buddhism and Taoism worked together. When it came to Li Yi, nothing worked. He had newspapers. After all these years, the Li family Zhuangzi's reputation was the best in the Tang dynasty. If people made a wish in front of Buddha and wanted to live a better life, Buddha couldn't do anything about it. If people went to the Li family Zhuangzi and said they couldn't eat, the Li family Zhuangzi would help them according to the actual situation and arrange jobs. If people fell sick in the monasteries and offered incense and kowtowed, they would still die. If they went to the Li family Zhuangzi and kowtowed, the villagers would help them find a good doctor. If they lacked medicine, they would give it to them for free. Many people would live. If they didn't know how to raise poultry, the monasteries couldn't teach them. If the newspapers told them that they didn't know how to raise poultry, the Li family Zhuangzi would teach them step by step. In the entire east of Mount Taihang, The prestige of the Li family Zhuangzi overshadowed all sections. In fact, there were monks and Taoists in the monasteries who knew medicine. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't do anything. It was fine if they saved people. But if they didn't, wouldn't their reputation be ruined? The Li family Zhuangzi tried his best to save people. He didn't care about the title of a divine doctor. The monks and Taoists in Luoyang didn't dare to use their religious beliefs to incite the people against Li Yi. Whoever started the winged knights would be attacked by them. The people didn't care. The students who stayed in the monasteries all ran out. They were worried that they would be implicated. When the news spread to the people, most of the people began to not go to the monasteries. They were all watching the show and waiting for the results. They were also waiting for Li Dongzhu to order to demolish the houses of the monks and Taoists. So what if they demolished you? Li Dongzhu even beat the king. The monks and Taoists did not move. Princess Jingxian did not stop printing books. She knew the situation. After this matter was over, she still had to give the books that should be given. The outsiders continued to look for work, including a woman with 4 daughters. She arrived in Luoyang. Previously he had walked by himself. Later, when the bus arrived, he took the bus. She was not worried about remarrying. She had experienced many things, but she still looked young. Some people were just like that. Of the 4 daughters, the younger one was raised by the imperial court, while the older one was enrolled in the academy. None of them were burdens. This was especially true for some men who had lost their wives and children. It was best to find someone like that to spend the rest of their life with. As soon as she registered at the registration office, someone immediately brought over subsidies and vouchers for the children. She was not in a hurry to find a job or arrange a place for her to live. The most important thing for her now was to take care of her children. On Mount Song, the monks and Taoist priests were hurrying along with the hunters. The hunters were going to attend the meeting. After the meeting, it would be October, and they could go hunting in the mountains. The hunters brought their dogs with them. Those who did not have dogs were not hunters, so they could only wander around the nearby mountains. The villagers also knew how to trap rabbits and catch pheasants in winter. It had nothing to do with hunters, and was not professional. Hunting dogs were the standard. They stayed in the mountains for many days. At night, the hunting dogs were in charge of guarding. If they encountered traces of large beasts, the hunting dogs would warn them before the hunters even noticed. A few hunters went into the mountains together. When they came out, they brought back large amounts of leather and dried meat for a living. When the hunters saw the monks and Taoist priests, they were not respectful. In the past they were respectful, but now they were not. They were in a hurry and overtook them. You guys can walk slowly. How can your stamina be compared to us hunters? Let's go to the Li family Zhuangzi and see how to arrange a hunter's hut. I believe in Buddhism. Will you build a hunter's hut for me? What? You said that Buddha arranged for mortals to build it for me? Bah. Li Dongzhu is a mortal? Where did the cruiser come from? You guys are so powerful. Take one out for me to see. The monks and Taoist priests felt this discrimination. Fortunately, they were hunters, so it was normal. The hunters usually did not worship them. Before the hunters entered the mountains, they would worship the mountain gods. They would enter the temples to burn incense. Mountain god temple and earth temple. But why did the hunting dogs give them a look of contempt? Who are you looking down on? Are you looking down on me? Li family Zhuangzi was preparing to go to Shaoluonan village for a bath. The hot spring there was not open to the public yet, but there were people going to drunken immortal residence. There was also Wen Tianlan Xiang Pavilion. It was currently run by Princess Yongmu's maid. Luoyang Palace was demolishing and building houses. It was like heaven on earth. Brother Yi, can we arrive before dark? Let's stop for a while. The small cups do not look like much. If we drink one cup after another, we will get drunk. Li Longji sat in the ambulance, drinking kung fu tea and waved his hand. Li knew several authentic kung fu tea brewing methods. Anyway, each sect claimed to be authentic. He took a small pair of scissors and cut the edges of the pumpkin seeds. After cutting, he pinched the seeds open. The shape of the scissors was curved. Ordinary people would not be used to it, but he was used to it for surgery. Brother Yi, aren't you going to monitor the blacksmith assessment? Li Longji grabbed a handful of hazelnuts and divided them between his hands. He pinched them together, and a lot of hazelnut shells fell off. They are all fixed words. The data has been collected before, and the lie detection step is not difficult. Those who pass need further inspection, and those who fail will live in the place arranged by Zhuangzi for the time being. Lie detection is not necessarily accurate. After a period of observation, those who fail may not have a problem. Li Yi said as he began to peel the cut pumpkin seeds and feed them to Princess Yongmu and Xiaolan. Princess Yongmu was knitting a sweater, cashmere thread, which would prick the skin. Xiaolan was the same. She was responsible for knitting the sleeves, and finally the sleeves. Several colors need to be woven into a pattern, not a large flat needle. Including the small pocket on the sweater, it needs to be picked out with a thread picking technique, not a separate sewing. Who is this for? Li Longji looked at Li Yi and asked his daughter. For Bauer, Dudu and the others. I need to knit a lot. I don't know if I can catch up. Princess Yongmu lowered her head to knit and answered casually. I'm too tired. It's better to read a book. Brothery, do you think so? Li Longji felt distress for his daughter. Do you need to knit so much? He continued to look at Li Yi. You don't need to knit after this one. I'll draw a drawing and replace it with a machine. It's half artificial and half mechanical. It's 50 times faster than this. Li Yi understood. I'm responsible. Don't worry, it's easy. Don't knit, Xiaolan. Stop. Wait for Li Lang to come out with the equipment. Princess Yongmu is even more straightforward. What am I doing here when I hear that it can be mechanically knitted? She doesn't care what I knit with my own heart, or what the machine knits without soul. Ah. Xiaolan paused. She accidentally pulled out a needle and dropped a bunch of needles that she had knitted earlier. She hurriedly started to knit again. Fortunately, only one auxiliary needle was dropped. If the needles on the shelf were pulled out, many lines would be wasted. She was making flowers, using 5 needles at the same time. She picked up a hazelnut and pinched it with a pair of pliers. Li Lang, it can't freeze here in winter. The hot spring river is flowing, unless it snows hard. I think so too. Li grabbed a few handfuls of hazelnuts and put them into a box, then shook it vigorously. After shaking for a while, he opened the box and 80% of the hazelnut shells fell off. Li Longji looked at his red hand that patted the hazelnuts. Chapter 1961. The distance from Luoyang Palace to Li family Zhuangzi's mountain was 25 li. From Li family Zhuangzi's mountain to Shaluo village was 30 li. The road was much better than when Shaluo village was hit by mudslides and floods. Li family Zhuangzi opened Drunken Immortal Tavern there, so they naturally had to repair the road. In another large carriage, Zhang Shua was talking to his colleagues. Today is different from the past. On the day of the disaster in Feishan County's Shaluo village, the road was much worse than it is now. The incident happened in the morning, and Shaluo village chief Ma Jinshuan arrived at noon. By the time I brought people to the village, it was already night time. Ah, I failed in my duty. Zhang Shua looked like he was guilty. He knew the news at noon, and was late in arriving at the disaster area at night. Then how do you still have the face to live? Yao Chong and Zhang Shua never got along, so he found an opportunity to attack. Zhang Shua said, You don't understand what I'm saying, do you? The disaster happened in the morning, they arrived at noon, and I went over at night. Don't you understand how urgent they were when they asked for help? They rushed over as fast as they could. If I could arrive at night, I would also rush as fast as I could. In the entire Tang dynasty, other than Li family Zhuangzi, who could be faster than me? To be able to do this in the position of Hunan magistrate, it's really not bad. Baigu spoke honestly. He was also the magistrate of Hunan magistrate. He admitted that when he was in office, Feishan County's Shaluo village encountered a similar situation, and he couldn't get over for 2 days. At that time, there was no perfect organizational structure. Later, Shaoi came up with it. Looking at the speed of the capital magistrate's disaster relief, 30 li, at most 2 hours, and they arrived with relief supplies. If it was an emergency, 30 li could be rushed over in an hour. The cavalry was light. As for Li family Zhuangzi, Its existence gave people a feeling that it was unreal. Li family Zhuangzi made people feel that it was floating in the air. But it didn't feel high and mighty. Let's go and fail. It doesn't matter if we succeed or fail. Song Jing was recommended by Yao Chong, and he was biased towards Yao Chong. With just one sentence, he had turned Zhang Shua's efforts into a meritorious and demerit act. He had merely made up for his mistakes. That's right. Just like the disaster in the prefecture of Guangzhou, the ordinary villagers are unable to build houses with stones. How could they die in a fire? According to local conditions, the people living in thatched huts were still there. If houses were really built with stone, how could the imperial city of Chang and the Ziwei city of Luoyang always run into water? Sui spoke. He had a good relationship with Zhang Shua, so he criticized Song Jing. When Song Jing was the commander-in-chief in Guangzhou, he told the people that houses made of bamboo and thatch could easily catch fire and should be built with stone. Can Chang'an and Luoyang do it? They have bamboo houses in their area. If you want them to tear them down to make stones, they don't have money or manpower. The key was the lack of ventilation in the bamboo buildings and the reflux of the stones. Every year in southern heaven, the stone houses would grow green hair. The straw mats are good. When the sun is high, put them outside to dry. At night, put them in the house to sleep. When you wake up early, you won't feel sore. Zhang Jiling spoke, which was equivalent to changing the topic. He was talking about how to avoid dampness. The others had to agree, because his home was there, and he had the most right to speak. Ask Xiao Yi how to deal with southern heaven. Bai Gu changed the topic again, and carefully touched the head of the little robot beside him. Don't touch a woman's waist and a man's head. The little robot said. When are you a man? Bai Gu couldn't tell the little robot's gender. When am I not a man? Do you believe that I won't pass you the message? Are you a man? The little robot said. Man, help me pass a message. Bai Gu had heard Li Yi say something like this before, so he took it out and used it. Okay, brother, you're too polite. Who isn't a brother? Just wait and see. The little robot responded with a Beijing accent. You want me to deal with southern heaven? Are you kidding? Why don't you say that I can't make it snow in the winter in the north? Li Yi knew that southern heaven could only be solved through two methods, both at the same time. One was a heater, the other was a dehumidifier. In winter, even Sonya's seaside was cold, so there was a heater. Then, dehumidifier equipment had to be added. Through the building model, it was a conical tower. The inside of the conical tower was also damp. Charcoal and quicklime were placed to absorb the moisture. Xiao Yi, just tell me if you have a way. Bai Gu acted shamelessly. Yes, 200 yuan per household per month. I can solve it. Li Yi gave the answer. 200 yuan, what are you thinking? You think we're there? Okay. It's okay. Bai Gu's purpose was to change the topic. He saw the big signboard of Drunken Immortal House through the car window. The topic could be stopped. Drunken Immortal House was not open today. If you wanted to soak in the hot springs, there was a river. The entire middle and lower reaches of the river were controlled by the officials. Bai Gu used to bathe there, and so did Zhang Shua. Compared to the people of Chang, and in the past, the people of Luoyang were cleaner in winter, and could always bathe. Now that it was winter, there were baths in Chang, and including hot water delivery services. All 811 people of Shaoluo village were there to welcome Li Dongzhu and see what His Majesty looked like. They were not a threat. Guozi and Li Yi accompanied Li Longji and Empress Wang on the left and right. Li Longji and his wife each held a doll from another family. They were about 1 year old, a boy and a girl, wearing new clothes and a light layer of powder on their faces. How is your family after the disaster? Are there any difficulties? Li Longji asked knowingly. There were elders in the village with high status. What's there to ask? The Li family Zhuangzi is here. Difficulties? Didn't His Majesty ask Li Dongzhu to deal with it early on? It's fine, it's fine. The old man was very direct. He smiled at Li Longji and winked at the little doll in Li Longji's arms. The little doll did the same. The doll was the old man's grandson, so he was called great-grandson. He belonged to the 4 generations living under the same roof. Li Longji did not find it strange and continued to ask. After the flood, the house looks new from here. Is there a shortage of furniture in the house? There's no shortage. The magistrate of Hunan province said that money was allocated from the government. Actually, we know that the Li family Zhuangzi exchanged it with warm soup and said that the magistrate gave the money. It was not easy for the magistrate to rush over in the middle of the night. Without the Li family Zhuangzi, the magistrate's team saved lives. The coffin I prepared was washed away at that time, but it was found later. It was fine. They all said that my coffin was good. The old man really did not know how to lie at all. Everything he said was the truth. When he mentioned his coffin, he was prepared to go in before he died. It was washed away by the flood and was pulled back in good condition. The coffin was prepared too early. It still needs to be stored for a few more decades. Li Longji said seriously. The old man grinned. He. If your majesty says so, then so be it. Ah. The child also let out a cry. Li Longji held the doll and continued to ask the others. Li Yi was at the side taking pictures. The little robot was in charge of recording the video to be used in the future for publicity. The villagers were simple. When they saw His Majesty, they were all excited and forgot what they had thought of before. They just said whatever they wanted to say. In summary, there was only one situation. There were no problems. You don't need to worry about it. You do your own thing. The Li family Zhuangzi is enough. After Li Longji was done with the villagers, he returned the child to them and turned to enter the Drunken Immortal Residence. The Drunken Immortal Residence was built on the mountain. It was one floor after another and was larger than the one in Lantiang County. It's quite tiring to go up the stairs. Li Dan climbed the stairs and said when she reached the third floor. There's a human-powered lift. It's good exercise to walk. Li Yi pointed to the spot next to him. Chapter 1962. The place Li Yi pointed to was a vertical reinforced concrete building. It was not built along the mountain, and the space inside the building was quite large. There were 4 human-powered elevators opposite the building on the mountain, extending out into a corridor. Each elevator could only go up or down to one floor. If one wanted to go down again, they had to go to the side, and the side would go down. It was relatively light, and only a few people could shake it. If they did not shake it well and fell down, it was only one floor. It would not kill anyone, but it would take a lot of effort to injure them. Under the elevators, there was a foot-thick cushion made of straw, which was already very advanced. Customers came to Drunken Immortal House and took the elevators. Each floor cost 1 coin. Those who were less than a foot tall were free, but under normal circumstances, children were not allowed to take the elevator alone. The people in charge of the elevators were selected from the villagers of Luonan village, and they made a lot of money. One side of the elevators was equipped with large pieces of glass for viewing. Those who wanted to eat black bread and drink free soup did not need to go upstairs. Those who went upstairs were the rich. How many floors are there? Li Dan looked at the building. The 3 floors are considered a relatively independent building. In fact, it is a row. Every 3 floors have a large platform. If you don't take the stairs, there is a stone staircase to the platform. There are places on the platform where there are no buildings. For fireproofing, if a building on a floor is on fire, you can first go through the corridor to the other buildings. If you go up and down, there is a large platform for at most 1.5 floors. If you hide in a spacious place, you will definitely not be burned. Li Yi said that this place was similar to some places in Chongqing, where there were floor by floor. When you reached the top, you would find that it was a platform on the first floor. San Lang Yurong, take the elevator. Li Dan did not care about anything else. Once she heard that there were 30 floors, she stopped climbing. The elevators could only take up to 10 people at a time. People on each floor worked together to turn the turntable. With a crashing sound, the elevator slowly rose. After going up 1 floor, they walked a few steps into the next elevator. If each person pays 1 coin, will there be any profit after the elevator? Baigu began to calculate the cost and recovery. In theory, 1 person can take the elevator alone, which is enough for manual labor. The materials are light, and there is a thin wooden board on the side. There is glass on one side, and the board below is thicker. The construction cost is calculated according to the number of customers. In theory, one person can't take the elevator once a day. Now, you are taking the elevator for free. You didn't pay, so you are losing money. Li Yi knew that during business hours, people would have to line up for the elevator. Customers would not take the stairs. The monthly income of the local commoners was not even enough for the customers of the Drunken Immortal Tavern to go up and down in a day. It was equivalent to his car cost 5 to 6 million yuan. The monthly depreciation fee was even more than the monthly income of a 4th or 5th tier city resident. Then 1 month Baigu was thinking about it again. Change it. Come down quickly. The people above want to lock this floor with a board. Li Yi called Baigu out. Oh. Baigu followed him out and entered another lift. Not waiting for him to continue asking, Li Yi took the initiative to say, last month, the income from the elevator was 1,500 cubes. Adding on the income from other businesses, in another month, the entire Shaluo village's investment in the Drunken Immortal House will be recouped. Baigu swallowed his saliva. The people of Hunan province are so rich? No matter how rich they are, how can they compare to someone who can sell the stones and wood of a house for 2 million yuan? Li Yi smiled as he asked Baigu, is Princess Yongmu's property worth less? Baigu knew that when Li Yi mentioned Princess Chongning, he earned more than 2 million yuan just by selling her things. How much did it cost to build it? It was indeed too much. But thinking about the current Princess Yongmu, how much was Wen Tian Lanxiang Pavilion worth? There was one in Chang'an, one next to the Drunken Immortal House in Shaluo Village, and one in Luoyang Palace. According to the price of glass, Princess Yongmu was the richest princess in the Tang dynasty. Is Princess Yongmu's property paid for by the palace, or the Ministry of Revenue? You only see her making money. Did you forget that she donated money? Li Yi suddenly said loudly. Everyone around heard him. Princess Yongmu looked at Baigu meaning, what? Are you thinking about my money again? Therefore, Princess Yongmu should get more property. This old man will talk to His Majesty. Baigu was quick-witted and changed the meaning of Li Yi's words. Old Bai, you're amazing. I'll wash your teeth tonight. Li Yi was stunned at first, then nodded. No, I just did. If I wash too much, my teeth will be gone. Ugh. You're saying this old man is shameless? Baigu said as he reacted. If you have Buddha in your heart, everyone is Buddha. My heart is Buddha. If you don't believe me, I'll recite a passage for you. Li Yi refused to admit it. Xiao Yi, stop at the next platform and take a look, noble consort Lu suddenly said. Everyone went to the 9th floor, which was the 3rd platform. They went from the connecting corridor to the platform. This place is easy to defend and hard to attack. Guazi stood at the railing at the edge of the platform and looked down. The first thing he thought of was war. If the enemy wants to attack, they can slowly come up from the side of the mountain road. Why would they need to go through such a steep and dangerous place? We have to defend against the enemy outside the country. Otherwise, once we're surrounded, even if we fight to the death, in the end. Li Yi looked at Baigu. Old Bai's family had loyal officials, just like Guazi's family. War has money. Baigu thought that Li Yi was looking at him to talk about military funds. War makes money. In the desert, we can plant trees and make a path to Shaohai. The local resources are rich, and the winter is cold. We can build a castle to give people a place to live. With the development of the Tang dynasty's industrial system, the resources there will be a lot of use in the future. Li Yi talked about the war. He didn't want to kill all the later Turks. If the other party surrendered, he would take away the power of the Khan bit by bit, and let the people of the upper class live a carefree life. He also didn't want the other party's women, and let the other party have no choice but to write in their dreams, not knowing that they were guests and indulging in pleasure. It was easy to say goodbye, but difficult to see again. Of course, the later Turks couldn't write even if they wanted to. It must have cost a lot to build this drunken immortal residence, right? Noble consort Lu looked at the platform. It was bright and spacious. Looking down, she was in a good mood. No wonder so many people were willing to come. Empress Wang looked through the binoculars. It must have taken a lot of effort to build this drunken immortal residence. It must have something to do with the rapid recovery of Feishan County. Of course. I'm afraid that some people will say that Xiao Yi is extravagant. Xiao Yi was clearly helping others, but she ended up in a bad situation. Noble consort Lu leaned towards Li Yi. Li Yi's existence made her feel like home. Her husband and children who survived the Xuanwu Gate were all here. She had a biological child. The people are not stupid. They know who is good and who is bad. Li family Zhuangzi gave them a high salary and gave them extra materials to build houses for them. The people of Hunan province support Uncle as much as the people of the capital. Uncle occasionally said that he was learning from someone, but we don't know who that person is. Empress Wang wasn't worried. Who would dare to speak ill of Li Yi? Wasn't he afraid that if they said it during dinner, there would be one less person to eat breakfast the next morning? Let's take a look at the stone steps. Oh, there are small ridges on the steps. Is there a wheelchair and pram? Noble consort Lu found a wide stone staircase at the side. There were 3 paths leading up. Li family Zhuangzi had such a path. The pram and wheelchair could be pushed up. Before one felt tired, a small platform appeared. Chapter 1963. Customers spend a lot, so we have to provide the corresponding service. Ordinary stir-fried cabbage, or vinegar cabbage, is the heart of the cabbage. The bean sprouts are chopped to remove the taste, leaving only the middle part. Pick the most tender part of the cowpeas. Every part is almost the same. Sun Xian was in charge of answering. The ugly manager was not here, so he had to work hard. No matter how he performed, he was still second and could not be surpassed. Songda was the first to follow Li Yi. Most importantly, he was sensible and did not bully anyone with his status. Where did the cabbage go? Lu Youqiu's unyielding character made him not understand the common people's affairs very well, but he still wanted to participate. Eat. Not for customers, there are staff. Also, Shaluo village. Anyone over the age of 14. 1 coin per person per day. Drunken Immortal House will cook for you. Sun Xian replied, not looking down on the other party because he joined the group. Staple food too? Lu Youqiu did not understand. If the staple food was given, the Li family Zhuangzi would pay for it. There are 10 customers, quite a lot of food and wine. Also, the staple food is countless buns. During the meal, most of the people drink wine. No staple food, no takeout. Abandon. Sun Xian did not have Songda's ability, so he tried to make his words sound more refined. Anyway, with his current level, he could not pass the imperial examinations. He had not memorized the Analects of Confucius. 10 customers, no food, no buns but drink. The rest is abandoned. Lu Youqiu felt awkward and translated for him. Thank you for your guidance. Sun Xian understood. I'm not refined enough. As expected, those who joined the group are all good. The others had a good impression of Sun Xian. At least he worked hard and was willing to learn. Literature was accumulation. On the platform, there was a group of people. The winged knights did not move. Brother Yi and the others. Li Longji saw so many people wearing gorgeous clothes. Didn't they say that the restaurant was closed? Yu Huaid and the others, they will stay here when they come. Li Yi waved at them. Yu Huaid and the others did not bring any attendants. They walked over and stretched out their hands, palms facing up. No need. Li Longji was relieved. Your subjects greet your majesty. Yu Huaid took the lead and bowed. The climate in Luoyang is slightly different from that in Chang'an. Can you adapt? Li Longji had a good impression of them. These people supported the economy of the capital government and the surrounding prefectures. They donated money to build sheds, repair roads, and provide military supplies. Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. Everything is fine. Some customers arrived a few days ago, and the leftover vegetables and buns were delicious. Yu Huaid bowed again and answered. His mouth was still dripping with the chives foam from the Sanxian buns. Are you eating other people's leftovers? Li Longji was surprised. Don't you have money? Each and every one of you. Replying to Your Majesty, Dongzhu doesn't charge us money. Most of the guests only eat a few mouthfuls of a dish, or even don't eat at all. It's a pity to throw it away. I've been out there doing business, eating the wind and sleeping in the open. I'm used to suffering. You won't get sick if you heat up the food. And the staple food is even better. It saves Dongju the money to entertain us. We don't lack money. It's better to keep the money to help the people and donate to the soldiers. Yu Huai told the truth. It showed that he had money, but he wasn't willing to use it at this time. Good. Is there anyone in your family who will be taking the imperial examination next year? Li Longji nodded. Yes. Would ordinary people dare to compete with you in terms of wealth? Yes, about 24 people. They are doing business and paying taxes. They were given a quota, because of your Majesty's kindness. Yu Huai replied. There's a question in the current affairs policy. It's not to be leaked. Let's go to the next place. Li Longji said, and no longer paid attention to Yu Huai and the rest. Thank you, Your Majesty. The group of people bowed deeply. They understood that this was leaking the question. Weren't they just eating leftovers? It was a question that would give them marks. Who knew how many students couldn't squeeze into the first place because of this? Old you can't say it. If you say it, I'll know. Li Yi reminded them. He meant that His Majesty would know. Only a fool would leak it. Our children are going to take the imperial examination. Yu Huai wanted to dig his heart out. My children are taking the imperial examination. And I'm leaking the question? Yes. A gentleman's action is to cultivate his moral integrity. Cultivate his moral integrity? Remember, you can't break the question by saying, if one is immoral, one is virtuous. If one is immoral, one is immoral. If one is virtuous, one is virtuous. If one is immoral, one is virtuous. As an official, one is for the people. If the people are virtuous, one is virtuous. If the people are virtuous, one is virtuous. Li Yi said the question, and explained how to solve it. Zhuge Liang's Book of Commandments was the question. When answering it, don't answer Laozi's Dao De Jing. This part of the Dao De Jing talked about the superior. It had nothing to do with the ordinary people. For example, if you eat the leftovers of others, this doesn't conform to the virtuous of the Dao De Jing. You are virtuous but not immoral. Your level is not high enough, and your vision is small. But do the ordinary people want such a high vision? The ordinary people don't want the Dao. They want to live. And the Dao is natural. The ordinary people have food and drink. Living is natural. After speaking, Li Yi also left and caught up with the group. He had said everything he could. Yu Huai and the rest memorized with all their might, and quickly found a pen and paper to write down. This question was full marks. Xiao Yi, according to the Dao De Jing, what you do is virtuous. Bai Gu waited for Li Yi to come closer, and said with a smile. Yes. Words are not good, but good words are not good. Good people don't argue, and good people don't argue. Knowledgeable people don't know, and knowledgeable people don't know. I don't conform to any of them. Especially saints don't accumulate. Saints don't accumulate, I accumulate. But the latter part is the same. If you think of people, you have more. If you give to people, you have more. There's nothing wrong with it. If I help others, I will benefit. If I give more things to others, I will earn more. It turns out that Laozi also knows how to do business. Amazing. Learning the Dao De Jing, you can learn the way of business. As for the way of heaven, it is beneficial but not harmful. The way of man is to fight for it. That's impossible. Grass and trees fight for a ray of sunlight, and then grow strong. Animals also fight for a mouthful of milk and food to grow. Li Yi said the content of the Dao De Jing. He agreed with some of it, but he absolutely disagreed with some of it. I'm not that high. He felt that Laozi was talking about the Gongchan doctrine. It was good in theory, and might be realized in the future. But the annotations you wrote for the Dao De Jing are not these. What you are saying now? Song Jing said from the side. Does your annotations have anything to do with what you said? You definitely didn't write anything about Laozi doing business. I'm sure. It's normal. Dao can be explained but not Dao. It's mysterious and wonderful. Let's go quickly. When the hunters are back in place, the next stage of the people's livelihood arrangement will begin. What's the use of thinking about it? Dao exists for a long time, but the country lives and dies. The country lives and dies, but the people live and die. That kind of Dao is too far away for us. It's better to retreat and form a net than to envy fish. The Dao is there. Let's think about how to let the people live a good life. Li Yi returned to normal. In his opinion, the Tao Te Ching belonged to the category of philosophy. But now he didn't think about too profound philosophy. He only thought about the lives of the people. Everyone listened to Li Yi's words and found that there was nothing wrong with it. They couldn't blame him for being disrespectful to anyone. Wasn't it enough for the people to have enough to eat? Xiao Yi, you said a few days ago that you wanted to bet with the Buddhists? With the people around. Song Jing thought of something. He began to worry about those Buddhists. The people would be the judges. They would see Li Yi's attitude toward the Tao Te Ching and his care for the people. If the Buddhists agreed to this bet, they would probably be condemned by the people. The little robot even used the word you. Li Yi hated to say you when addressing people, unless it was the colloquial language of the Beijing dialect. Sometimes the word you was not respectful but scolding people. When Tian, is the water hot? The little robot connected and Li Yi's voice came out. No, I just talked to Xiaolan and Xiaolan said. Princess Yongmu explained the matter. We have to leave land for them to grow food and raise chickens to lay eggs. Even if they don't eat meat, they eat eggs. We only raise hens, not roosters. In other words, we have to leave a way out. It's not good to force them too much. After leaving land, the temple owes more money in terms of shortcomings. In such a situation, if the people don't burn incense, they will never be able to pay it back. Therefore, the principal is not touched, and the interest is allowed to be paid by them. It can be considered helping them. For example, if they say a good word about the imperial court, it will be worth 1 coin, at least 50 words. If they say good things about His Majesty, there will be a Buddhist song and a reception monk to promote it. It will be worth 3 coins. Spread it among the people. And while treating the people, spread the medicine of the Tang dynasty. It will be worth 5 coins. Li Yi introduced another set of operating methods. If the temple does not receive money, its fixed assets will be sold. The Tang dynasty can't be without temples and temples. If we help you, you can treat it as buying goods, give us a good review, and then give us cash. However, this is not cash but interest. Unless you promote it vigorously, you may touch the principal. But if you really do that, the price of each promotion will be reduced. For example, if you wash clothes, 1 piece will be worth 1 coin. If you wash it vigorously in a day, you can wash 300 pieces and earn 30 coins. Suddenly you invent a washboard, and you can wash 900 pieces a day. The boss will see, no, you can wash 3 pieces, and I will give you 1 coin. This kind of boss is more pure and simple. He doesn't care how much more money he will earn because of this, but always maintains the stability of your income. When the young people see through all the actual situation of capital exploitation, and don't fall for it, the boss suddenly turns hostile, and says that the young people nowadays don't have the spirit to fight. To put it bluntly, people nowadays are not so stupid, and are not willing to be exploited by me. Damn the information age. Li Yi wants to do this. He wants those monks and Taoists to work hard every day to promote the good of the Tang dynasty and the kindness of His Majesty. They would contact some of the counties and villages in Hunan Prefecture. Some of the locals who could enter the Grief Field Square were sent to the Grief Field Square in Luoyang Palace. There were also temporary places for people to stay. The extra things were sent to other places. For example, in a certain village, there was only 1 person left in a family. He was sick, and there was no one to take care of him. If he was a big surname in the village, the authorities would ask other people with the same surname to take care of him. If he was not a big surname in the village would provide some help. It was fine if the village was rich, but if the village was poor, the help given would be less. Such people would either enter the Grief Field Square, or deliver something to the Grief Field Square. There were also women with 2 or 3 children. Their husbands had died, and some of their in-laws were bedridden. They were also given things. With more things, it was easy to send them, including the volunteers. They could also bring some home themselves. They were overjoyed. The temples and monasteries in and outside Luoyang Palace were being cleaned. The few hosts who suggested to spread the news were the most depressed. They said that Li Yi knew that the Great Tao was brilliant and could not be changed by humans. In the end, they realized that they were powerless in the face of the brilliant Great Tao. Something has been sent. There is something. Princess Jingxian knows about the situation and sent someone to send it over. There are hazelnuts, sugar-fried chestnuts, and oil tea noodles. Let us persevere for a few days. After discussing the Tao with Li Yi, everything will be better. In the Chuanjin temple in the mission square that had just been ransacked, a little Taoist ran in cheering. His eyes were still red from crying. The host frowned. Princess Jingxian knows quickly. What's the use of sending food? Sending food means that Li Dongzhu does not want to be ruthless. A sage-like person came out. He was a Taoist master. He looked at the problem from a higher angle than the host. The host only thought about the things that have been snatched and sent. Princess Jingxian is with the saint. Li Dongzhu is also with the saint. If Li Dongzhu does not agree, why would Princess Jingxian send it? The Taoist master stroked his beard and said, "Why does Taoist master still call Li Yi Li Dongzhu? If not for him, would my temple be in this state?" The host was filled with hatred. Li Yi had proposed the 10% tax in the past. Later on, Baigu wanted to collect it. When he and the others looked for Baigu did not dare to respond. Then the 10% tax became 5% tax. If not, they would move. He wanted to discuss the Tao with Li Yi. As soon as the news was released, his temple was snatched. Princess Jingxian has printed countless books. They all provide Li Dongzhu with movable words, paper, and ink. He had seen other people's performances before, but he couldn't ask about the theory behind it. That is indeed kung fu. Eggs are raw, so they are harder. Usually you have to be barefoot to master it. Splitting a plate is relatively simple. You look like you are splitting it, but you are actually breaking it. But when it comes to crushing porcelain fragments into powder, Guazi can do it, and so can many winged knights. The strength training of fingers and the thickness of calluses. Li Yi also understood this, but he couldn't do it. This thing was like performing ball support surgery for the eldest disciple. There were all kinds of theories. Why don't you give it a try? If it was so easy, why did you need to find a lot of death row prisoners to practice? All these had to be practiced. Just like when he lost his footing, he was willing to buy cheap jelly. Some people thought they liked it, but in fact, they used it to practice their tongue and throat to swallow and spit it out. It was not easy for people from all walks of life to make a living. Brother E, write it down for Pear Garden. Li Longji discovered a new world. Why didn't Brother E talk about this in the past? All he talked about was how to threshing, shelling, and grinding. There was also digging wells, building canals, and raising forest frogs and bean worms. There are some props that are very cheap. Li nodded and suddenly mentioned the cost. How cheap? Li Longji actually asked. Basically, a technique only needs to be used once. It's a one-time use. It's not a one-time skill. I guarantee that you will be able to master it. For example, this steamed egg with sea urchin. After eating it, third brother, look. I stretched out my hands. There was no sea urchin. I turned my hands to show you the back of my hands. There was still no sea urchin. Ouch. I pricked it. The sea urchin's thorns are too annoying. Li Yi performed a close-range magic trick for Li Longji, and was accidentally pricked. He quickly squeezed it. What if it was poisonous? Li Longji had never seen Li Yi perform magic before. He was shocked. Brother E, you know how to do this? I'm a doctor in neurosurgery, thoracic surgery, neurosurgery, and other surgeries. If my hands were not flexible enough, would I dare to operate on others? Li Yi stretched out his hands. There were no protruding fingernails. He sharpened them every day. Sometimes, when it rained, he would put his hands into deerskin gloves to keep them warm. A few degrees of temperature difference did not matter to ordinary people. If he were to perform neurosurgery, his hands had to be absolutely flexible. If a little fresh meat cut his finger, he had to go to the hospital quickly. Otherwise, it would heal. For Li Yi, his hands were more precious than the little fresh meat. When he performed neurosurgery, not to mention a cut, He could even use pure water to change the water in his house on the first day to avoid muscle fatigue. Of course, the little fresh meat was being unreasonable for his own sake. He was being responsible for the patient. The two were different. If he needed to perform neurosurgery on a patient tomorrow, he should go to bed now. The temperature in the room was best at 25 degrees. With such hands, he could perform magic with just a little practice. The hands of a doctor who could perform interventional surgery were very flexible. Li Longji finished a steamed sea urchin egg and used the sea urchin shell to practice. He was pricked a few times. On the other side, the women in Si Gongfang were trying hard to remember the new song from Chang'an. Dancing was also secondary. They all knew how to choreograph and dance. The main thing was to listen to the meaning of the song. There were very few songs in the Tang dynasty. For example, the song "The White Sun is at the end of the mountain, and the Yellow River flows into the sea." If it belonged to the 5 unique songs, there would be a song. If it was "The Birds Fly High, the Lonely Cloud is Idle Alone," it was also the 5 unique songs, and the song was the same. It was the same as Li Yi's song that changed the lyrics but not the song. Especially the different language versions, it was called filling in the lyrics. For example, "The waves run. The waves flow. The river flows for thousands of miles and never stops." In other words, it was unforgettable, brilliant. Who would forget the beach? Also, "Tonight the breeze blows gently, blowing my heart." Then there was another one, "Drifting with the waves and the wind, following the waves of a lifetime." The Tang dynasty was like this. A song was filled with many words. As long as it matched the same rhythm, it would be filled in. It was similar to some surgeries, but to be able to come up with a new song, which was to say, to invent new surgical methods, they were all equally awesome. "Li Lang, I sang the Xintianyu song that you wrote. They liked it very much." Princess Yomu came back. She was tired from singing and accompanying the music, so she took a rest. That's why our folk songs are the best. According to the environment of each place, they can be bold and unrestrained or lingering. Li Yi had just heard that he had copied the Xintianyu song. However, he was still thinking about the elegance of Jiangnan. Each had their own strengths. How could he allow Buddhism and Taoism to override the national laws of the Tang dynasty? Look at the temples and monasteries of the capital. Which one of them didn't pay taxes? If you have land, you have to hand it over. The merit box will be managed by the imperial court. When the time comes, you will get a share of the money, and the imperial court will take the majority. You said you lacked the money to print the books, but Princess Jingxian didn't ask for your money to print the sutras. You can't do it in Luoyang. If we didn't confiscate them in the past, you would have saved a lot of money. Yi Fashion ate a mouthful of crab meat. It's not just Buddhism and Taoism. Li Yi also oppresses Confucianism. Even the temples of Confucius have to pay taxes. If the descendants of the clans wish to become high-ranking officials, they have to take the imperial examinations. Yi Fashion said with certainty. He had guessed Li Yi's thoughts. Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism all had to reduce their influence. Next year, the imperial examinations will only include the Analects of Confucius. The year after next year, they will probably change to other books and break away from Confucianism. Shan Wuwei gave his own analysis. By then Buddhism and Taoism will be at peace. Let's see how Confucianism and the clans will deal with it. Yi Fashion sighed. He lamented Li Yi. Little by little, he dealt with all the other matters that could affect the imperial court. He figured out the key thing was money. Only with money could one raise an army. With money one could let the people live a good life. And the way to make money was through work. One could make valuable things with work, including cooking. It's hard to find someone like that in 1,000 years. Shan Wuwei commented on Li Yi. He looked at the history of the Tang dynasty and above, including his own, and found that no one could do what Li Yi did in such a short time. Let's go into seclusion tomorrow. Yi Fashion continued to eat the crab meat and wanted to hide. Seclusion. Shan Wuwei agreed. If they didn't go into seclusion, it was time for them to fight Li Yi. It was guaranteed that they wouldn't win. And regardless of whether they won or lost, their status in the hearts of the people would drop. The people didn't care who you were. If you fought Li Dongzhu, you were a bad person. Let whoever came up with the idea go. He didn't mention anything about discussing the Tao with Li Yi. The sky brightened again. The people continued to live their lives. Some people excitedly talked about yesterday's situation. People continued to clean the temple, but no one offered incense. Even if a small number of people still believed it, they were afraid of being beaten. Princess Jingxian arranged for people to send things to the monks and Taoists. Many senior monks and Taoists announced that they would go into seclusion. No one was a fool. Those who were not slaves were considered small leaders, leading the slaves to fight. They didn't gain much from each battle, until they were captured and held captive. At that time, they were very worried that they would be taken to the Tang dynasty and killed. They didn't expect that not only did no one kill them, they even helped them bring their families over. Their abilities were not ordinary. Now that they had made a lot of money, they were not restricted from going out. The people of the Tang dynasty were very kind to them. Therefore, the tribes in the northeast believed that the southwest barbarians were strong because of their combat prowess, while the southwest barbarians knew that their strength lay in their foundations. They had a new belief. When their children were enviously told by other children of the Tang dynasty that their father was a warrior of the Li family Zhuangzi, how could they not be satisfied? Even if they could leave the Li family Zhuangzi in the future, they would not leave. It was easy to leave, but hard to come back. Mo Aegon didn't know the beliefs of the southwest barbarians. He felt that they were powerful, and should learn from the Li family Zhuangzi. At this moment, he said to the leader of the group who hunted the bear and wild boar, "Learn from them, and see how they lead a group of people. We are not strong enough. The strongest are the guards of the winged knights, and the Li family Zhuangzi." The winged knights selected the best ones, and then trained them. Many of the guards of the Zhuangzi are disabled. They survived after fighting with the enemy. Most of them are bouncing soldiers. If they are on alert, we are all afraid. The leader told the truth. They were indeed not as good as the winged knights. The southwest barbarians were short, while the winged knights were tall and strong. The short ones among the feathered forest flying cavalry had to be special existences to guarantee that they had the ability to kill. For example, they didn't need to aim. They could shoot wherever the wind blew within dozens of steps. What's a bouncing soldier? Mo Aegon always had endless questions. When two armies face each other, they will charge in formation. Once they are in a stalemate, the crossbowmen behind both sides will shoot at the enemy's back. The shield soldiers are responsible for blocking the arrows. At this time, the bouncing soldiers will come out. They don't wear armor. They are bare-chested and barefoot. They only wear short pants. Then they bite a short knife in their mouth and hold a short knife in their left and right hands. They will jump into the stalemate. With a pounce, they will stab the enemy's body. Then they will turn around and leave. Then they will roll on the ground and continue to kill. After a while, they will jump to the crossbowmen behind the enemy. They will not be in formation, but they will take advantage of the gaps. When they found that many wolves in the den had gone out to hunt, they even took out the wolf cubs, including the nursing female wolves, and stabbed them with small knives. They let the female wolves and wolf cubs cry, and when the wolves heard the noise and came back, they would kill them together. The small wolves were too small and difficult to deal with. They did not have much meat, so they were directly thrown into the snow. They would rot and disappear next year. The big wolves were skinned and cooked. The offal was cut up and put in more oil in a big pot, then stir-fried with chili. More than 200 wolves were brought back by the winged knights in the morning. There were traces of all kinds of animals on the snow. In addition, The southwestern barbarians who cooperated with the hunting team brought back wild boars. The people of the tribe were so happy that they cried. So much meat. It was not easy to get some in the past. In normal weather, it would only be enough to feed their tribesmen. If there was a little extra, they would have to exchange it for other things. If it was the army of the Tang dynasty, how could it be so easy to hunt? Dongzhu is right. Beat the roe deer with a stick, scoop the fish, and the pheasants fly into the rice pot. I don't understand. How can the locals have such a hard life? Hunting is enough. Then we can open up the land, plant crops, raise tussa silkworms, and roaming pheasants and pigs. The leader of the southwestern barbarians sighed. It was all good stuff. It was easy to catch prey in winter. Your original place was not bad. Do you think your family ate well? Li Endong mentioned something that the southwestern barbarians did not want to remember. Not everyone in the southwestern barbarians could eat meat. The southwestern barbarians were Yunnan, western Guizhou, southern Tibet, and other places. Were there many resources? Were the local people living well? Since when did having more beasts equate to having more meat to eat? There were also many fish in the sea. Ask the people by the sea if they could eat fish every day until they were full. There are no such weapons. If there are, it's fine. The leader of the southwestern barbarians found the reason. It has nothing to do with weapons. It's the ability to organize. Blow darts, bows and sticks. It's not difficult to get resources in an organized way. The organization in your place is not perfect. The dried meat you make is easy to spoil. There are also many fruits in your place. How many people make dried fruits and keep them for eating? Li Endong learned a lot and understood why others had a hard life. The Li family Zhuangzi could make the best use of the same resources. Others fought for themselves. We are willing to follow Dongzhu and do things. The leader admitted. His family had come. Chapter 1984. The sweet potato slices can't be cooked for too long. They'll be cooked in a few minutes. Li Yi told the others that everyone in Zuetian house would eat hot pot together in the evening. I received news in the afternoon that Buddhism and Taoism have reached a consensus. They want to officially invite Li Yi to preach on a moonless day. The date is set to be next month's full moon night. Sui picked up a piece of sweet potato and threw it into the pot to cook. He told them about the information provided by the intelligence personnel in the afternoon. Oh, there are still more than 20 days. I guess they're preparing props and training people to play a large-scale illusion show with me. Speaking of this illusion, the royal family has a performance. The old Taoist monks are very skilled in fooling people. If I give them some special tools, they'll be even more powerful. Okay, I've been thinking about what kind of support we need on that day. Where should I choose the location? Li Yi just realized that the other party wanted to play a big game, such as performing a moon landing or something. They don't have steel wire rope, but they can use strong silk rope. Then there must be a place to hang things, such as next to a cliff or a tall building. They can extend a strong long pole outside to hang the rope. If it's snowing heavily and I preach to them on flat ground, they won't be able to use many tricks, right? Li suddenly thought of a sinister idea. You can perform magic tricks. If it's snowing on a full moon, it'll be as if it's daytime. Heaven is in charge of the snow, but he can choose the location. Xiao Yi let them choose. Let's watch the show. Noble consort Lu wants to see a large-scale illusion show. They can probably choose a place with mountains, buildings and water. It's convenient to hide people and arrange props. The people who want to watch the show can go to the Martyrs' Cemetery to pay homage to the immortal heroes who fought for the country. Ask the monks and Taoists to go there and tell them who gave the people of the Tang dynasty a good life. Li Yi agreed. Let's play. Pear Garden, Pyongkong Square, and Sigong Square can perform for a few more days. Xiao Yi, the cost of exchanging notes with the Li family Zhuangzi's exchange coupons. Bai Gu finally found an opportunity to ask. He had been waiting for the whole afternoon. Oh, the imperial court's banknotes will be printed out. When the exchange coupons are worn out and need to be replaced, we can directly exchange them with the imperial courts. Li Yi said as he fished out the sweet potato slices from the pot. They were cooked. Bai Gu was stunned. After a few breaths he asked, so simple? What else? If it weren't for the fact that you want to control the cost, you could have just redeemed it. You don't need that little bit of money. Now that the paper-making technology had improved, the new exchange coupons would be used. Whoever refuses to submit to Tutu will die. Then we'll go back. Fan Fan winked at the child. Dongju can fly? What is Tutu? Mo Aegon did not believe it. The muskets we use reload after each shot. Dongju had a type of gun that could fire continuously. It was like shooting arrows without stopping. That kind of gun could kill people from a distance of 1,000 steps. But it was not very accurate. Fan Fan pointed to the musket on his back. There was no need to introduce the pistol to the other party. It was a secret weapon. Dongju is an immortal? Mo Aegon gave the definition. Yes. Several people nodded together. He was an immortal. Mo Aegon ran back to tell the news to the other tribesmen. Everyone was relieved for the time being. Their living standards were low, but it did not mean that they were stupid. A large group of people wanted to go to the Tang dynasty. It was fine if they went secretly, but after running to the royal city, they still wanted to leave. Would the king agree? With the expectation of the future and the unknown, everyone sped up. They arrived at the place early and left after exchanging their items. The sky would get darker and darker. They had bet everything and could not turn back. Regardless of fatigue, everyone moved forward crazily. The children were sensible and did not cry. In fact, they were afraid of being beaten. The adults' emotions were unstable, and the children would be irritated when they cried. Except for the children who were too young. The slightly older ones would know how to control the situation. The survival of the tribe never believed in tears. When it was almost dark and they were ready to set up camp, Ajin, the leader of the largest tribe, came over. They said that they should leave at night. The horses should rest. They can arrive at midnight. It's very close. Li Endong did not answer directly. He looked at Fan Fan. Fan Fan began to send a telegram and asked Li Yi if it was okay. Li Yi was not only Dongju, but also a miracle working doctor. In less than 20 minutes, the telegram came back. Rest. Add fine ingredients to the horses. Let's drink hot soup. Those who don't sleep put ginger powder. Those who sleep don't. Fan Fan followed the instructions and prepared to drink more water for those who stayed up all night and did not sleep. The others who rode the sleigh could not eat ginger anymore. Why do you spell it like this? Li Endong could not figure out the content of the telegram. When fighting, courage is also important. When the morale is high, the second is weak, and the third is exhausted. Now the morale is high. We can rely on it, but not be stopped. Fan Fan understood that from a military point of view, Dongju's operation was definitely not wrong. After the people of the tribe knew, they were excited. They quickly let the horses rest. Let's drink soup and drink more water. We can't stay up all night without water. The little robot next to him suddenly received the message. It could also receive the telegram. As for the translation, it didn't take even a second. Call back. Ask the farmer and the winged knights to tell them about the daily life of the Li family Zhuangzi. Don't exaggerate. Tell them the truth. It's a pity that Hao Lingquan isn't there. Li Yi thought of someone. Hao Lingquan, General Hao. A large group of tribes in Tubo joined the Warm family because of his existence. Next time, he should send Hao Lingquan to Bohai. He thought that he could bring back more people. Fan Fan received the order and called the winged knights to chat. They praised the old man's strong body and bones, praised the man's strong and fiery body, praised the children for being obedient and sensible, and praised other people's wives for being virtuous. Bolaro's people were embarrassed by the praise. They thought that this group of winged knights were good people. Fan Fan took out a piece of candy from his pocket and gave it to Bolaro's youngest son. More than 1,000 people. In the Tang dynasty, there are no ordinary Zhuangzi. Only Li Dongju's Zhuangzi is okay. Li, what's Li Dongju like in Zhuangzi? Bolaro asked curiously. Everyone said that Li Yi was good and good. The Li family Zhuangzi was good. How good was it? Did they also eat 3 meals a day? Could they see meat? How is it? Sigh. I'm angry when you mention it. Our winged knights and His Majesty live in the Li family Zhuangzi, and some of the 16 guards. Fan Fan said as he punched his thigh with his fist. His face was full of hatred. He doesn't treat you well. Sometimes you can only eat 1 meal a day, and you can't eat meat? Valaro was very concerned about how many meals others ate a day, and whether they had meat or not. It seemed that 3 meals with meat was the most beautiful life. It's just that when it comes to food, it's infuriating. They cook dozens of dishes at a time, and choose randomly. Sometimes they're not allowed to pour it back if they make a mistake. Then they throw away the leftovers, and put them in big buckets. They don't want buckets after buckets. Like the Zhang family village next door, they're much better. Usually, they can eat 6 dishes and they don't pour much. Fan Fan said sadly. He blamed the Li family Zhuangzi for having a hard time choosing dishes and wasting them. Chapter 1989. Daleka, I'm Brilo. The Li family Zhuangzi of the Tang dynasty is here to trade. Send someone to inform the king. Brilo shouted after seeing Daleka through the binoculars. A rider ran over. Brilo, why are there so many people? Daleka shouted before he even got close. They brought a lot of things. Send someone to inform them. They are the men of the Li family Zhuangzi of the Tang dynasty. Brilo continued to look through the binoculars. It was the first time he used it. It was amazing. Yes, I saw you guys just now. I thought you guys were going to rob us. Daleka looked at the binoculars in front of him. He had heard of this thing before. Unfortunately, it was a military item and not for sale. Otherwise, it would be useful for hunting. The smell of the broth wafted out. Daleka did not hesitate. He found an enamel bowl, scooped half a bowl of broth and drank it. Fan Fan sent a telegram to tell Li Yi that they had arrived. It was just like what he said they were farming. Because the Sumo water in the west was good, it was the Songhua River, and the king's city was built next to the Hahanhai Sea. The Hahanhai River flowed through the Hahanhai Sea, and the Hahanhai River was the Mudanjiang. With such a big river, it couldn't be for fishing, right? Some places in the Bohai Sea were grazing and raising horses. Some were fishing, some were farming, and some were pottery. It was divided into different tribes and regions. The whole northeast of Heilongjiang, Jilin, and Liaoning was part of the Bohai Sea. It was very tiring to trade. The distance between each side was far, and there were tribes in between. The king's city more than 10 miles away was called a city, but it was better to call it a gua. A short mud wall was built in a place. In history, tall mud walls appeared later. Currently, the Bohai Sea was not enough to shake the country. When he received the telegram, Li Yi was staring at the tofu soup in a daze. Last night, or rather, before he woke up today, he had a nightmare. He dreamed that many monks and Taoists besieged the Li family Zhuangzi. Most of the winged knights were confused by the witchcraft. He wanted to use the heavy machine gun to attack, but it was always stuck. Suddenly, a dog flew over and bit his trouser leg. He was running and struggling. He stomped on the ground with all his might. Accompanied by the dog's squeaking, he did not want the heavy machine gun anymore. He switched to the anti-aircraft machine gun and fired horizontally. He sat up and yelled, "Da-da-da-da," as he woke up. Princess Yongmu ran in and hugged the puppy on the ground. The puppy glared fiercely at Li Yi. "Dongju, do you want to call back?" After the little robot finished reading the contents of the telegram, it asked for the follow-up. This time, the price is lower when exchanging slaves, so it's easier to collect slaves. Don't stay for too long, 3 to 5 days will do.